Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
Today he saw a scary picture from the shower in half. His beloved Lotta was pouring powder of the indispensable white verso into the soup. Charles, with a heartbeat, opened the safe, pulled out a pistol, loaded it almost silently, sighed convulsively in indignation. More. Blackwas rushed away the traitor, that shoehorn banished, paved the window of the spacious dining room, barely swung his arms, trying to jump out. Heavy partners trimmed with gold thread stopped. The running strap rattled. It was finished. The master twitched in some kind of oblivion, silently lowered his gun. At the sound, a guard named Rick, nicknamed Patron, ran in. "Charles, is everything all right?" he asked, bursting through when he saw the young hostess in the corner of the room. "Save it. It's cold in here. Cut off the boss to me, and me being the master of the town. This one," he nodded toward the table. "Send this to forensics." A week later, General James discovered his daughter missing, even when Lotta left Moscow for a provincial town. Following a dubious lover, she had always kept in touch with her family, and now her phone was unavailable. The girl had not been in touch for several days. The general made inquiries of the cohabitant and his daughter. With horror, he learned the truth about what was happening in the dark, corrupt world, where Lotta dived headlong into. Patriot himself, the owner of the city and holding in subordination almost the entire police department, had to pay dearly for daring to enter the warpath. Changes were coming, but they did not bring the long-awaited success. The criminals roamed free, took over the whole city, stretching their hands into all spheres of life, blackmailing the authorities to keep 500,000 people in their captivity, whom they forced to work for themselves. They threatened reprisals and starved them to death. It was a war, a miserable struggle for freedom and power, and the right to live on according to their own laws. The Patriot had one demand: the general gets out of town. Everyone continues to live as before, reckoning with the established rules. Charles. Mason was playing the violin self-consciously. A sublime melody pierced the room, seeming to strive to break out of it, to fill the whole world with joyful beauty. Mother was sewing by the window. From time to time, she opened her sewing eyes and gazed at her son with pleading eyes. The father came swiftly into the room, holding several cartridges in his hand. "What do you need these for? Where did you get it?" she asked her son. Mason answered indifferently. "Found it on the street." "Why did you bring it home?" "You know we all face jail time for possession of weapons and ammunition. The cops have already locked up how many people in the city?" The mother looked at her son reproachfully and sighed. "Mason, it's such a scary time. You got to be more careful. I thought maybe I'd need it for something." "Guilty," the boy replied. "Why aren't you thinking about us? Do we have to take risks because of your frivolity?" Rebuked the father. "I'm not afraid of these people. They'll leave as they came. The old-timers are strong in town now. They can bring our town to order." Mason answered hotly. "How do you know?" Father inquired. "I overheard a man. Maybe you work for them, too." The men my father meant the gangsters who were like an octopus running the city, with connections in all the important places in the city, including the mayor's office and the police. "I'll go if I have to." "You can't talk to your father like that," Mother said, trying to reconcile the two dear men. "I'll take a belt and teach him how to live, no matter how big he's grown." The father grumbled irritably. Mason glared at him and sprinted out of the room as the door slammed behind his son. "He's 17 years old now, and you talk to him like he's a child. I don't know how to communicate with him, how to protect him from the threat of death. Seeing what's going on around people, recruiting, luring people to offer money, and these little kids are getting in everywhere. Now I'll remind him every day to be careful. Dear God, what's in store for them?" Mason jumped out on the porch near the woodshed, saw Miranda's friend, went over to him, said hello by the hand, sat down beside him, and silently looked around the familiar yard, which was surrounded by 3 large houses, each with 2 apartments. On fences and doors hung notices that threatened punishment for withholding weapons information about criminals. Nearby hung a sheet with a portrait on it. On it was written "Wanted." From the poster looked the hard face of the patriot ringleader and thief-in-law. "Why are you so angry?" Miranda asked. "I talked to my father, and he took my ammo." "What kind of ammo did you have?" "For the rifle. I wish I had other ones. I have to look at what I bought," said Miranda proudly, pulling a gun out of his pocket. "Wow. Where did you find it?" Mason said enthusiastically. "A friend gave it to me. He said he didn't need it. Now probably someone was shooting to the last bullet from those policemen, and then he was killed. It's a stranger's gun, but I could use it. Lucky you. If I could get some ammo somewhere, I could take a shot. But it's no use now." Lisa, a classmate of Sophia and Miranda, entered the courtyard and waved and smiled. "Greetings, guys." The guy holstered his gun and called out to the girl, "Sit with us. Tell me, what do you hear?" "Nothing good. Patriots holding hostages in an open-air camp. People need clothes, medicine, and food. So I'm wondering where to get it all. Is everything the same for you? I work in the bakery warehouse. You guys are on the bread line. Help people out." Lisa asked, "Do you know what kind of situation people are in? The breadwinners in the families who died, who is missing. They are deprived of all means. Everything in the warehouse is accounted for. They'll go to jail for stealing." Told my wife Mason, "You try it. We have one good comrade, Mishania. When he was on duty, how many times we threw out a sack of flour to pay off the bandits, to keep them away from us. At least some bread. Take it to this address." Lisa gave Sophia a piece of paper. "There's a woman with a child starving." Mason looked at Lisa and asked, "Dina Sivyakov, and her patronymic as superfluous. She is almost our relative." "How do you know?" I asked. "I was wondering what's up." "What's up?" "I don't know." The girl shook her head and walked away. "Our Zaroka took charity," wondered Miranda, "how poor she was. Tried to teach me chemistry. And I was an oak. Stop being a jerk. I know you, Zoe and Jacob. You were probably in love with her like most guys. Did she also tell you to pretend you're on the bandit side when the going gets tough? I know that without her." "Look, get down," shouted Miranda. Mason recoiled in surprise, but he pulled himself together at once and said indignantly, "You're a fool, Miranda. It's such a time to hide from everywhere. You don't have to teach me. Knowing me, I'll show you what I'm really like. The big men over there couldn't fight off the bandits. I'd rather die than be hungry and skinned like them." Picking through the ruins and waiting for Lisa to bring them a piece of bread, Miranda thought for a moment, then said meaningfully, "Our Lisa is beautiful. But I feel that she will fall into the clutches of this patriot. She won't be able to fight him off." "So what? Or do you like her?" Mason asked. "Who doesn't like her?" "Well, I don't mean like her. I mean I like all girls." Miranda winked at her friend and changed the subject. "Jacob's not home much today. Shall we click him?" He whistled shrilly. The window opened, and Jacob's shaggy head appeared in it, and he shouted, "Hi. Hold on, just a little while. I'll be tucking the little ones in." The mother was on her way to the village to get groceries, and I was babysitting. The hostages were working at a construction site under the supervision of the crates, who sat far away and milled about with cigarettes. Lisa walked freely. Not that was allowed. She approached a tall guy in a torn black cap, and he smiled brightly as he greeted her. "I missed you so much," he said, not holding back his joy. "I wanted to see you too. Noah but was very busy at work. Many wounded have been brought in. We can barely keep up with the 12 o'clock work. These turned the city instead of a slaughterhouse. You are so beautiful today because of how you are, how all is you see, without change that we can. There are people ready to help you." Lisa said in a whisper, "But where are they? Why can't they be heard?" Lisa was silent and with a good-natured smile looked into the eyes of the guy, and then said, "Let's try to get them out of here." 5 men. Indeed, you speak the truth. Noah hugged the girl. She released herself from the embrace and whispered, "She's watching. I'm sorry, you can't imagine how much I want to be free, to avenge the abuse and humiliation we endured. I feel the same way. My only advantage over you is that I'm not being held here under threat of execution. However, I am also deprived of the opportunity to study, to live freely. I am forced to work as a cleaner to have something to live on. I am forced to help my non-powerful mother. I'm sure that one day it will all be over. Your life will be completely different. You'll study and everything will be fine. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll live to see that time. They don't feel sorry for us here. Many people die every day. The corpses are taken outside and buried in a ditch. Young people die of hunger, of disease. But the worst thing is that nobody is going to fulfill the bandits' demands. It's as if the police want to take everyone at the cost of our lives. And so far, nothing is moving. I'm convinced of justice, and I'll do everything I can to make sure you live to see your release. And this is your lunch." The girl picked up a discounted purse. Thank you, my dear." He tried to hug Lisa out of gratitude, but she shamefully ducked and said, "The other day I'll drop by, prepare to run. I'll miss you and wait for you," Noah replied. As soon as the girl disappeared behind the building, he patiently began to untie her purse. The other hostages reached for him with hungry gazes from the bowed purse, but at the same time they heard the guard shouting a threatening reminder to get to work. In the poorly furnished room, where all that was furnished was a table, a bed, and 2 stools, Kelly tried in vain about boycotting her hungry baby. She put the baby to her empty breast, gave him a drink of warm water from a bottle with a pacifier. But the baby still cried. "Calm down, my little one." The mother coaxed her son. "I don't have milk. Tomorrow we'll go with you to the village. I'll ask for every kind of work, just to save you from starvation. God, why am I being punished like this? I can't bear to see your starving child die. Save us," she writes, "and help us to survive." Suddenly, she heard a knock at the door. Kelly froze with fear for a moment. Then she tiptoed closer to the door and listened. Again, there was another cautious knock. The baby cried heavily, and Kelly had to ask who was there. She wondered if they were bandits. There was a knock at the door. "No, they're not. I have no one." The woman opened the door and saw Mason, confused and embarrassed. "Sorry to bother you. Lisa gave me your address. I know you're having some difficulties. Anyway, you have the wrong address. I'm looking for Kelly. Isn't that you?" She opened the door wide and told him to come in. Mason entered the room before he had a chance to look around, and Kelly, losing patience, asked what you wanted. "Do you want to get ideas on me? Tell me and have them come and kill me. I'm sick to death of shaking with fear. My son is starving to death." She cried helplessly, clutching the baby to her breast. "Don't cry, please. I've brought you some bread. They give it to us at the bakery. I work there," Mason said hurriedly, handing Kelly a loaf of bread. Kelly looked up in disbelief and asked for the bread. "Bread? It's for us." "Yes, please take it." With trembling hands, she took the loaf, sniffed, and closed her eyes in pleasure. Quickly, she put the baby on the bed and herself put aside a piece of bread, wished, and then gave it to the child. He immediately calmed down. "God himself sent you here," said a grateful Kelly. "I am already despairing in different ways. Scary thoughts came into my head. I thought I'd starve to death with my son. Thank you very much." "You're welcome. If it wasn't for Lisa, I wouldn't even know you existed." Mason was headed for the door, but the woman stopped him. "Wait, who's Lisa? Can you at least tell me your name?" "Lisa is a classmate of mine." "Does she try to help women like you?" "My name is Mason." "What a rare, beautiful name. Why are we standing here? Please sit down for a moment. Tell us a little bit about yourself." "I don't really have much to tell you about myself. I graduated from 9th grade. I live with my parents to help out. I went to work in a bakery." Can you tell me how I can survive? I'll take any job. Don't worry. I'll help you when you're with the baby," said Mason goodbye. Kelly gratefully walked the young man to the door. As soon as he came out, she quickly went to the table, took the bread, inhaled deeply its smell, then broke a piece and began to eat. The bandits told to dismantle the rubble left after the failed assault of the SOBR. Some with words, some with pickaxes, some with shovels. 2 guards with rifles were busy not so much watching as talking, joking, and laughing. They were convinced that the hostages could not escape from them. Noah was out of earshot. Lisa came up from behind and covered his eyes with her palms. He immediately realized who it was and shrieked with joy. "Lisa is here. How are you?" The girl asked sympathetically. "Nothing to tolerate for now." "Let's hide from prying eyes," he suggested and took the girl around the corner. At home, he looked me carefully in the eyes. "I miss you so much." Noah kissed Lisa. She embarrassedly freed herself from his embrace and whispered, "Well, what else will you see?" "I'm sorry. I don't want to let you down. Are you going to run?" "There are 5 reliable ones. I'm the 6th. Make it 6. We'll talk about how. Here's the plan. Memorize it and destroy it." The girl handed Noah a piece of paper. He hid it in his bag. "Your task is to break out of the fence. Go beyond this line to cut the wire." I brought the pieces. Couldn't find anything else. "Very useful stuff," said the guy and shoved the pieces out of the beggar's boot. "The plan is to run to the cemetery, which is not far from here," continued Lisa of the hostages in the cemetery. Noah smiled coldly. "Bad joke," the girl cut him short. "It's a Catholic cemetery. There the graves are made in the form of a cellar. By the 3rd tombstone on the right, clothes and food will be prepared for you. The grave on the plan is marked with a circle. As soon as you get out of the city, go out of the city into the forest. And then you think you don't know what's next. This is your lunch." Noah hastily took the bag from her hand. He wanted to unwrap it at once, but held back and said, "Thank you, Lisa. You're a true friend. Give me a kiss. I won't see you again." Lisa reached her lips to the guy for a moment, froze, but then shyly recoiled. Something frightened her. "No need to go," Lisa replied, and lowered her eyes bashfully, but overcame herself at the goodbye and looked openly at the guy and warned once more. "Plan. Memorize it and destroy it. Don't worry, I'll do everything. Happiness to you." Lisa offered her hand. Noah took her palm, pulled her to him, and said with passion, "Wait, I won't have time to see you. We'll meet when it's over." "What kind of meeting?" "I'll carry you in my arms and kiss you and kiss you. Don't forget me, Lisa." Mason, Miranda, and Jacob gathered at their usual spot by the barn. "Did you visit that woman?" "Oh, the one Lisa told you about?" asked Miranda. 3 times I carried bread, and she was so happy. I'm going too. Imagine, she has 4 children. The potatoes I brought, they ate a little ironically. Why are you carrying something somewhere? Jacob was indignant. Better give it to me. My kids are starving too. Come on, come on. Remember, the very first day, when it first started, all the people were carrying something, and you were sitting on the bench and sowing seeds. Gone. I can't take from someone else without asking, I said. Anything people didn't take, the bandits took. How was I supposed to know? And now you can't tell your babies apart. What does that woman you're helping with the passes look like? Young, beautiful. Yeah, what are you like an owl for? Tell me the details, told my wife. Skinny as a girl, she was starving. Hair, blonde hair, clean figure, pretty face. I don't know how to tell my wife to look at her friend. And when Mason finished his story, he asked, how long are you gonna feed her for? As long as I can. If you lie to me, I'll be happy. Admit it, do you like her? Take a wild guess. I'll give you what you ask for on one condition. The woman will pay you. What are you crazy about? What can she pay you with? You're a guy, she's a woman. Can we make a deal? A woman with a baby starving to death. Are you kidding me? Mason rebuked a friend. Not grief. It's up to you to offer and see what happens. You gotta be a man someday. Take an example from me. What example? If you mean that drunken fool you found behind the barn, you should tell people about her yourself. It's embarrassing. You're wrong. There's a lot to remember. Jacob has Miranda's back. Don't talk, Mason. Is a woman or a drunk she or a sober woman still a woman? That's interesting. Stop talking nonsense, Mason grumbled. The guys were saved from quarreling by the appearance of Faith. She squatted down beside Mason and asked, "How are you?" "We ran your errand. I brought a woman with many children a sack of potatoes, and he provides his beauty with bread." "Well done. Support them as much as you can. I have a new favor to ask of you. I need you to collect men's clothes. Anything for the hostages," Miranda asked, without lifting a finger. Lisa gave the guy a stern look and started typing in her conclusion. There are hundreds of young men dying at the construction site behind barbed wire who could be working and providing food and heat for the city. We just need to help support them. They need to get out so people have something to eat, something to wear. Mason took Lisa by the arm, stopped her. "I'll ask my father. We don't have anything extra." "Mother barters everything she can for food in the village," Jacob replied. And Miranda shouted with disdain, sputtered saliva through his teeth. "Let me live as I want," I said angrily to the man. "How angry you are, Miranda. You don't know what life has in store for you. I need help. I'm counting on you guys." Lisa spoke. Lisa got up and went home. The guys escorted her in silence with arguments. "Lisa must have taken offense to you," said Jacob to his wife. "Why do you always have to be bullied?" Mason asked. "I don't know. It's interesting to pick on girls. They are so emotional, laughing or crying," replied Miranda. Kelly was having fun with the baby. When she heard a familiar knock on the door, she happily rushed to open it. Mason appeared on the doorstep. "I looked through all my eyes, and then I thought that today you will not come, because we are from the curfew in Rome," said Kelly, smiling. "Come in. Why are you standing on the doorstep?" Mason pulled some bread out of his bag and said, "Sorry, I'm a little late." "Here you go, Mason. When you address me as you, it makes me feel old. My bad. I won't do it again." "What's in the bag?" "Presents from Santa Claus." Kelly unzipped the bag and started pulling out the packages. A happy smile lit up her face. "It's all for me. We even got Manka's baby. The bun is really vanilla." "Mason, where'd you get it?" "I got it at work." "Where'd you get the groceries from?" "Did you go to another city?" "Paycheck to paycheck." Kelly sighed and said guiltily, "I'm happy, silly." "And then you'll feel bad. What will your parents say?" "I am an adult and can manage my own earnings. I wonder how old is such a grown man." Kelly's eyes squinted mockingly. 5 minutes to 18. 5 minutes. What's that in Gregorian time? "I guess it doesn't matter." "It does. Why am I attached to you?" "I was my age not too long ago myself. After high school, I got married right away. I thought I had a happy life ahead of me. But then this situation took everything away. My husband died as a hostage. Where was I supposed to go? Couldn't sell the apartment. Unless you sold it to gangsters, so those deluded people would kill." Kelly looked thoughtfully in front of her. Her eyes seemed to see nothing. Sophia felt very sorry for her. She wanted to caress her, to comfort her. But he only said all bad things will end one day. Everything passes. Unfortunately, nothing comes back. "Sadly," she replied, pulling out a violin case from her bag. "What is this, my violin? Do you know how to play?" Kelly asked, surprised. "Yes, I went to music school. My father gave me this instrument. He's a self-taught musician who plays by ear, but he's not really into it right now. You're gonna play this." Mason took out the bow and held it in his hand. A gentle fluttering melody spilled out in a wave. Kelly's soul and eyes shone and filled with joy, as if there was no hunger and fear of death, and only happiness reigned all around. Delight inspired minutes of creativity. And suddenly the melody stopped, as if there was no music. I think I'm getting carried away. I might wake the baby. Guiltily, said Mason. Play, please, with your music. He sleeps better than he does to my lullaby. It must be late for you to rest. No, play some more. The violin reminded me of a happy time when I lived in Moscow and ran to symphonic concerts with my friends. I went back to a lost joy. Okay, here's another tune. I came up with it myself. I composed it myself. I've never seen a living composer. The violin sang of unattainable love and a big human heart filled with passion. And when the music subsided, the woman clapped her hands, as at a genuine concert. The violinist bowed low to his female admirer. Rich brown hair fell across his forehead. The wonder of these true melodies. You're very capable, Mason. You should definitely go to the conservatory. Kelly doesn't have time to study. I have to go home. I won't let you go anywhere the whole time. They'll take away those inhumans and cry your beautiful violin. All right, you rest. I'll sit outside the door. Mason, do you really think I'm that cordial? Do you? Again, tell me, Kelly, you, Mason, take a moment to sigh and make up your mind. Kelly, you are the most beautiful, the most wonderful thing in the world. Mason, I'm very happy. Put out your violin and let's rest. Okay, I'm dozing on a stool. The girl smiled enigmatically, extinguished the lamp, went to the darkness, the bed, and from there sounded her affectionate voice. Mason, come here. There's plenty of room here. And he went to that voice. Lips joined, softened by our excitement and understanding of what was happening to his heart and body. Kelly stretched out and towards him. He pressed her palm against his and found himself in a heavy, willing embrace. Lisa bent her long black cash register in front of the mirror. Her mother had less hair in pots and was watching her daughter. Wanted to say something, but she was either picking the right words or waiting for the right moment. Finally, however, she asked, "When are you going to go for groceries? We haven't gotten anything for a long time, and we have to live." "I've already gone," Lisa answered. "How and where are the groceries?" "I gave them to people who need them more." "She's taken hostages again." Sorrowfully, said the mother. "What do you care? I don't want to starve because of your stupidity. You were an excellent student at school, and now you've lost your head. Where are you going? What about these people? I won't let them in." Lisa didn't say anything. She opened the closet to get her dress. Her mother approached her, looked into the closet, and was stunned. "What is this?" "We've been robbed." Frightened, she asked, "Where's my father's suit?" "Calm down. I took it." "Why did you even destroy my father's memory? You didn't leave a single shirt." "I took it all out," Mother said indignantly. "Dad will come back. I'm sure he will, and he'll buy himself an even better suit. And if he doesn't come back, what's left of him? Mom, the dead don't freeze. They don't get sick. They don't suffer, and the living can survive and fight." My mother cried and sat down tiredly and said, "Lord, why did you punish me with this stubbornness? Sometimes I took a man's shirt, pressed it to my chest, and it seemed that here he was next to me. And now I'm deprived of it. That business trip had to happen the day before. I wish he'd stayed here. Maybe it's for the best. He managed to get to the east from Moscow, and here the bandits would have killed him. He was working for them. He didn't even know it. You know how my friend Cindy died, right? God help him if he comes back. I'm not letting you go anywhere. Does my heart sense that you're evil? Mom, I'm an adult. You have no right to stop me when I have to go." The woman seemed to grow taller and said threateningly, "You read the notices put up by the police for associating with a patriot. Straight to jail for breaking curfew. Life-threatening. You have no right to risk your life. You're the only one I have. But I'm not your property." They heard a car honking outside. Lisa glanced out of the window and whispered warily, "They're the ones who can't see the good man behind them now. They're behind me." Mom said. Lisa opened the window that overlooked the city and jumped out of the room. At that moment, several men with rifles and a dog entered the room. They saw the window open and, running to their Lisa, snapped the sheepdog at her. The dog jumped through the window with a wild bark, caught up with the girl, and knocked her down. The mother screamed, "Lisa, Lisa, help, help." The men dragged the dog away. The bloodied Lisa was picked up and led to a covered truck, which immediately pulled away. The defeated mother remained standing at the window. "Mason, I'm happy you're home." The mother, as soon as she saw her son relieved, sighed and crossed herself. The father indignantly asked, "Where would we have been up all night? Didn't know what to do, where to find you. I told you I was going to the sit-down." Supposed to be a sit-down, which has quietly turned into a night out. Dad was being sarcastic. "Tried to get home. Almost ran into a patrol. So I had to spend the night at a guy I know," Mason said. "Which guy?" Dad asked. "You don't know him." "I don't know anybody around here. I know every dog around here, let alone a person. My mother and I stayed up all night, risking our lives to find all your friends. No one could tell us if he'd disappeared. I have a right to my life." Mother, who had been making excuses until now, said sternly, "Nobody is taking your autonomy away from you. But we are obliged to know where you are so that we can help you in time or keep you out of trouble. But what could happen to me?" "Anything. Your classmate, Lisa. Lisa got arrested today." "For what?" Mason asked. "For being independent, I guess. Was as stubborn as you, and her mother didn't listen," replied her father. "You have to be very careful. The police have a short conversation. They'll lock you up for any article and intimidate you. So you are no honest man." There was a knock at the door. Livingston came in to break the door down. From the doorstep, she cried, "People of goodwill, can you advise me how to save my daughter? Liam, help. Do you know who I can go to for help?" The hostess slipped a chair and helped the guest to sit down. "What did they take Lisa for?" asked the father. "Do I know? They took her and drove her. When she saw the car through the window, she wanted to run away. But those animals let the sheepdog down. The cow dog led her all the way. They wouldn't even let me dress her wounds. Maybe you have some acquaintances among the employees?" Liam walked thoughtfully across the room and then quietly said, "I have one acquaintance. I'll try to find out from him. Be patient, Livingston. I understand your pain. I sympathize. I'll try to help you." The guest bowed, wiped her tearful eyes, looked at Mason and said, "My God, my son, wherever would they put you like that? Thank you so much for everything. I have only hope for you, dear neighbors. It breaks my heart to see what Lisa is waiting for. We are merciful and save her from suffering. Sorry to bother you, but there's no one to even go to with my bat. Sorry. Goodbye." Livingston walked out on senilely twitching legs. Father said sympathetically, "That's what grief does to people. She's aged 20 years in a day. There is no greater suffering for a mother than to go through the misfortunes of her children," the wife said. The father turned to his son and asked reproachfully, "Hear what the mother says. That's how we get upset. If you are delayed somewhere without warning. By the way, where's your money?" "What earned?" Mason, afraid to look at his father, replied. "Lost it." "Where and when?" "Tonight, when I was running away from a patrol. Must have fallen out of my pocket. Another misfortune. But nothing, as they say. Find it. Don't be happy. Lose it. Don't cry." My mother calmed the family. "I used to bring bread from the bakery, but now even that is gone," said the father of that good man who allowed to take bread. "The police took it away from us because they suspected him of stealing flour. Instead of him came such fierce bandits that they don't give anyone bread. Only make sure that they pull someone across the back with a club. My mother sympathetically warned me to be careful. My son, don't be angry. They should stick to this job. Otherwise there will be trouble, and I ask you not to stay in town after curfew time." "All right. I'm not my own enemy. I can't see her," father said. In the gloomy prison room, a policeman was questioning Lisa with extreme prejudice. She stood with bloody hands and feet on Kosovo, and stared sheepishly in front of her. "Were you acquainted with the Patriot?" asked the investigator. "No," replied Lisa without looking at her interlocutor. "Warned that under the laws for false testimony and covering for terrorists, you face a big sentence. You were passing food, clothes to the hostages. How did you get in? Are you in league with a criminal gang?" "No." The investigator pressed a button on the corner of the desk. Noah was brought into the room. His clothes were torn, his face bruised. The officers of the law asked Lisa. "You know, he is gone," replied the girl sympathetically, looking at the guy. Then the investigator turned to Noah and asked him if he knew the girl, and he nodded his head in agreement. "Yes, it was she, Lisa, who brought me the food. It's all her fault. The police didn't say anything about us." The girl looked at her former friend and at the official with bewilderment. "Did you like her?" asked that unexpected question. Noah, not understanding, shrugged his shoulders and answered she, "Interesting girl. As a man, can you understand me? I'm behind barbed wire. She finds an opportunity to pass me food to fondle me. Young, pretty. Did she like you?" "I think so. Why else would she?" The investigator smiled squeamishly, looked at Lisa Bloody with spontaneous hair and said, "I think you wanted to fondle her. I didn't have time for that. I'm guarded all the time. Take her now, use her. There may not be another occasion." Noah blushed and coughed. "Here and now?" he asked. "Here and now. I'm not going to book a hotel room for you, am I?" "No, I can't do that." "I want her to answer," said Noah. "My consent is unnecessary. I give you the use of her for half an hour. Is that enough?" No, I can't do that." "You want to live like a human being. Do you want to live like a human being?" the policeman asked. Lisa realized with horror that she had fallen into the hands of one of the Patriot's henchmen. Here she would rather be killed than given the opportunity to be tried by the law. Hopelessness, the cold, the houses, the cauldron, and Lisa. She didn't care what happened next. "I want to live quietly," she whispered. Suddenly, she's insane. Who doesn't want to live? Soon Noah spoke. "Maybe that's why I ran away, because I saw how many people were dying around me. And I wanted to live." Noah moved closer to Lisa, speaking softly. "It wasn't my fault. We were taken when we were walking down the street. Let's do what our Mr. Officer commands. Maybe he'll give us life." He touched the girl's shoulder. She recoiled, spitting in his face. Noah wiped it away confusedly with his sleeve. Helplessly, he looked at the investigator and complained she didn't want to. "Probably did not love me, only pity me, nothing to love. That's what you are given, the male power to break her will. And if necessary, even her backbone. But you got what you wanted. I don't want anything. Just keep me alive. Beg." The investigator smiled and answered, "If you think you are worthy of life, then tell me about your escape, and I will listen again to better understand your Slavic souls." Noah withdrew from the faith, looked carefully into the officer's face, wanting to understand what he was trying to accomplish, and he began to narrate quickly and confusingly. "So it was she who brought me the pieces to bite the wire. And there's no way to save everyone. We're under the gun 24 hours a day. My bad. I chickened out. At first it was just the 6 of us, but some other people ran after us. I don't know how many there were. They rushed straight to the river and swam to the other side. And we acted according to plan. But the guards caught on quickly. Half of them were shot. Some were brought back. And I managed to escape. And then I came to you. I couldn't save anyone, and neither could she." "Let's go," said the cop. "What happened next?" And that was the end of it. By then it was dawn. It was dangerous to go out. I decided to wait until evening in the park. I had money. I decided to buy some vodka. I had to celebrate. I ran out after I'd had a drink and the patrol came. They took me in. I'm a well-known face. Everyone knows me. Head of a construction firm. And a hostage. They even wrote about me. And here I am. And I'm suspected of being connected with bandits. You're working hard, aren't you? Do you recognize him now?" I didn't recognize him. Lisa answered stubbornly. Lisa, how can you lie so shamelessly? Remember when we kissed when we said goodbye? You promised to wait for me. What changed? I knew a hostage, a brave and honorable young man. And this is the first time I've seen this wretch. The investigator asked the girl bluntly. Who directs your activities? No one. I don't know anything. Okay, I'll help you remember, said the officer and hit Lisa with a rubber truncheon with a swing. Lisa fell to the floor. The man gave the baton to Noah and said, now you hit. No, 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 no. I can't get up. Hit her. Noah got up. He leaned over the girl. She didn't even move. She had to be. She's dead, the former hostage said. She doesn't seem to be breathing. We're living her now, the interrogator replied. Grab a bucket of water and pour it upstairs. The girl from the hall opened her eyes, looked around the room as if trying to figure out where she was and what was happening to her. She saw Noah and closed her eyes again, unwilling to accept this terrible reality. One of these days will convict her and send her to juvie. Mason played the violin and his mother knitted by the window. Then she put aside her work, looking at her son, listening to the music. Listen, father, she whispered, so as not to disturb her son. How does Lisa? Mason, engrossed in the game, did not immediately hear the question. But as soon as he did, he cut off the tune and asked, what's going to happen to Lisa? Nothing good. I don't know how. Livingston can't tell. Really, the depressed McAllister muttered. I've been to see the warden of the prison. He said Lisa was taken as an ally of the Patriot. There's a big sentence for that. She'll be tried as a father, hospitals, terrorists. Protect, save the poor girl. The mother sighed. So how did the police know about everything? Asked Mason. The very guys she wanted to help her escape gave her away instead of leaving town. One had been drinking and fell asleep in the park. And then the patrol showed up. Now Lisa is being beaten mercilessly under interrogation. How am I going to talk about this? What a horrible life. Young people getting killed. And how do parents endure it? The mother said with pain. A friend told me about an incident, said McAllister, looking at her son. In the marketplace, during a raid, the police grabbed a guy about your age. He was running away, scattering ammunition. They started questioning him. They didn't accomplish anything. They're going on trial now, too. Who is it? What was his name? Volkot from your school. You see what would have happened if we'd found the bullets. There was a knock on the door. Livingston came into the room, said I was sitting by the window waiting for you, McAllister, to come back. And when I saw you, I asked you what happened to my Lisa. Have you been able to find out? Sit down, Livingston. The master invited me. The warders have agreed to take Lisa's gear away, prepare some food and linen. You'll ask him about his daughter. Here's the address. He lives near the prison. A big McAllister to you. Can you at least tell me how she's doing? He'll tell you everything. He's seen her. Oh, why am I sitting here? We must hurry. Livingston realized and headed for the door. Lisa was lying on the bunk in the cell. She moved heavily as she raised her head, forced herself up, and sank back onto the bed exhausted. Footsteps and voices came from the corridor, invited. And then it became quiet. Lisa gathered her strength in the village, watched the single camera outside the window, stroked her legs, nibbled, and sheepishly, on which black blood was written, tried to untangle her hair, thoughtfully spoke. Noah, Noah, how could you? Did you say you loved me? You emphasize your feelings every time. And for what? Only to take advantage of me, to risk my life to carry food. You ate me with the horses. What humiliation. What pain. Why? Tears, resentment, and helplessness rolled down his face. Footsteps were heard in the hallway again. Doors were banging somewhere. Lisa listened, sat down on the bunk, wrapped her arms around her head. She sat like that, side to side, as if nodding to her pain. But she was familiar with the Patriot. It was on his orders that the girl was let in to see the hostages. Lisa had been Charles' former mistress in the past, when he was not yet such a terrible man, having maintained a good relationship with him. Lisa repeatedly urged her former lover to come to his senses, to go away, to leave the city alone and free the people, but he remained adamant. He only allowed to see the hostages once a week, trusting the girl completely. I loved him so much, I was willing to wait my whole life for him. It seemed there was no better guy in the world, but he only pretended to be in love and shamelessly lied to me, as he humiliated himself, saving his own despicable life. It's all pointless. Why put up with this suffering? I'll be judged anyway. I don't want anything. I don't need anything. I'm sorry about Mom. I'm sorry about Dad too. I'm sorry I'll never know if you're alive in the colony. Dad, that's enough. I'll kill myself. It'll be an easy death. I'll run away from everyone, save them the joy of humiliating and beating me. Only death will save me from the pain. I can see her now. There she is, a marvelous woman. I stand and smile. I walk into her arms. Lisa untied her sash, made a noose, threw it around her neck, stood up heavily, looked around the room for something else to hang herself with. She went to the door, tied the sash around her ankles, knelt down, tightening the noose. Suddenly, the lock rattled. The door swung open. A caretaker appeared on the threshold. He quickly picked up Lisa, stretched the noose around her neck, took off the sash over her head, and put it in his pocket. Only then he threw the girl to the floor, saying, "You fool, I don't do that kind of thing. We do not die without permission. I serve here, and no one has hanged himself. Look, I've got a good sense of smell for suicides here." He waved the door and walked out. Mason and Miranda were sitting on their favorite place, from where the whole yard was clearly visible. They saw Irina's mom go into the house. "Lisa is probably going to be sent to juvie," Mason said. "How do you know?" The prison warden said. "You shouldn't have been hanging around with anyone. Not ours, not yours. It's not clear who the sly broad was working for. She's not worthy to be pitied. They say our classmate is on trial, too. What for? Why do bandits walk free and peaceful people suffer? How long can we put up with this? We should beat these monsters with hot tar and drown them in the river. I will retaliate, but I don't know how." A man approached me, saying that there are people in town, fighters for justice, offering to join. "What did you say?" I didn't say anything at the time. I thought maybe he was some kind of provocateur. Now I'm going to take revenge. I'm ashamed. "Mason, that people are dying, and we're sitting here. I gotta find ammo for my gun and shoot both of these subhumans off one by one in person. I can't kill a man. Bandits aren't people. They're worse than animals. And you'll kill if you hate the way I'll look for someone who's rebelled against the city's authority. I'll do anything he commands." Miranda turned away, furtively wiping away tears. There was a knock on the door at dawn. Kelly was very frightened, fidgeted, but still, overcoming fear, approached the door and asked for someone. In response, she heard the voice of Mason rejoiced, "Open the door. You're home early. I thought you were so scared of me. You always come in the evenings from the night shift and straight to your place," he said. "Kisses, Kelly. Here's a tip." Kelly took a freshly scented bun, inhaled the aroma, and even closed her eyes in pleasure. "Oh my God, it smells so good. Where did you get the bakeries?" Kelly gave her a hug and a kiss. Mason whispered gratefully, "Oh, you're my breadwinner. I would have starved to death long ago if it hadn't been for you. You will not quarrel with your parents." Then Mason smiled and turned away. Kelly took a bite of the bun and muttered, "What flavor?" "The same buns they sold in the Opera House cafeteria, and lemonade and ice cream." "Lights on." "No, don't. I can see you're wonderful as you are. You make me shine like the sun. What do you hear in town?" "I don't go anywhere. I'm afraid of being rounded up by people I know, so no one recognizes me. I'm afraid of everything. The bandits are rampant, and the police are out of control. I don't know where they are, and where they are not. Where's the truth? Where's the lie? Our Lisa has been arrested. The one who gave me your address. Why did she run to the hostages? That's what Kelly said to me once thoughtfully. Don't think like that. What are you being punished for? People are divided now. One of my former classmates joined the police force. Did he grab someone? Some are hiding and trembling in fear. And some are thinking about how to free the hostages and get these subhumans out of our city. Who are you with? Mason? I only want to be with you. I fall asleep thinking of you. And then I wake up and you're in my mind's eye again. Kelly smiled, stroking his hair, and asked, "And what do you think of me, remembering what was and dreaming of a new meeting, so you know how I wait for you every day? And not just because you bring me food. You see, you're the only soulmate I have in this town. You're my only hope. My God, to live through this nonsense. What a blessing it would be. What a joy. I love your violin. Do you play so well that your soul soars to the skies? Always come to me with your violin, not knowing what awaits me. But I'll die with your name on my lips. Don't think bad thoughts, please. I'll bring the violin another time and leave it here. No, don't leave it here. There's no telling what might happen to me. Don't be afraid of anything. My little swallow. We'll live forever. I love you so much. I never even knew it could be like this." Mason kissed Kelly long and passionately. Then he picked her up in his arms and carried her from the bed into the semi-darkness of the room, where a low whisper came from. Don't hurry, don't hurry. Dear neighbors, pardon me for coming to you with my grief. There's nowhere else to go. They condemned my only joy and hope. Isn't my Lisa in the colony with me now? No, I can't believe it. All I have is a note from her. Please read it. I'm blind from crying. The landlord helped Livingston to sit down, took the note, and began to read. Mom, I had a confrontation with one of the Patriots' men. They promised him a reduced sentence. In return, they said things about me that I didn't even know. I wish I had time to say goodbye. All right. Wait for me. We're saying goodbye. Take care of yourself. Kisses, your Lisa. The landlady, wiping her tears, said, we sympathize with you. She'll be back. I can't wait. The mother said bitterly, not believing what was happening. I was already crying all my tears. McAllister, dear, what to do? Will there still be a way to appeal when things settle down? I mean, it's not the real police, it's some kind of rogue cop. It's rampant. The guest cried herself to tears. The hostess gave her a glass of water. The host thoughtfully said, I don't know, Livingston. What can I advise you? How can I save and justify Lisa? I don't know. Livingston rose abruptly. And said, I will pray for her Lisa day and night. My poor girl. The landlady patted her neighbor on the shoulder and said, I sympathize with you. My dear, please contact us if you need anything. We will help you. We are responsive, said the mother. Livingston tiredly went out to grieve. Mason whistled under Jacob's window, and the smiling face of a friend immediately appeared behind the glass. He waved his hand in greeting. A moment later, he popped out into the street. What's with the candles? Wake me up, said Jacob. Come to my place. I'm late from work today. I have to make up for it at home. Where were you? Where was I? I'm not there anymore. Guess Kelly got jealous and said, Jacob, let's go and guess you. Well, at least you'll know a lot. You'll get old soon. A friend is called. Jacob resented, but obediently followed Mason. I can't wait any longer. I'm going to search through my friends. 12 o'clock has passed and he's still gone, said Longman. Grab a big handkerchief to tie him up. But where will you look for him? Let's wait a little longer, answered McAllister. Suddenly, the door opened and Mason and Jacob appeared on the threshold. They're here at last. The mother exclaimed happily. Where were you until then? Father asked sternly. I wanted to have a good friend, and that Jacob offered to visit him. So I helped him at home with his brothers. And then we talked until almost lunchtime, and we played a little chess. Jacob added, you could have come home, and then you could have gone. You know that Mom has a bad heart, rebuked Dad. My bad, sorry. Mason, you're on the night shift. You need to rest up for work. God forbid I fall into some bakery dough, Mother said thoughtfully. I'll get more rest. Now I'm hungry. Jacob went to the door and said, well, I'll be off. Victory is with us, Jacob. We have no sweets, but I'll treat you to borscht. Thank you. And I'll go. Mason stopped his friend. Jacob, enough. You're being given. Take it, hit it, run away. The men sat down at the table. The mother poured them each a plate. The boys began to savor it, and Jacob, as a guest, praised the dish. Very tasty borscht. I do not know how to make it, but my kids eat everything like locusts. Is your mom at work? The landlord asked. Yes, and if I have a free day, a friend of my aunt's goes to the village and works there. She pays with potatoes, cabbage, or beets. I have to babysit all the time. What did you cook today? The landlady asked. You boiled the baby before dinner. Let him just move. That's how I slapped them. Longman sighed, got up from the table, went to the kitchen, and brought a pot of borscht. Said Jacob, take it to your little ones. Let them eat properly. What for? I'll boil them some potatoes, and that's enough for them. Take it, take it, take it fresh to the warm. Beria ordered McAllister. And Jacob surrendered, took the pot, and going out, confusedly said, thank you very much. I'll be off then. Mason got up from the table and headed for the room, but his father stopped him with a question. Did you hear that Lisa was sentenced to 8 years? Is it really true? Livingston wants to exonerate Lisa, confirmed the mother. Mason was acutely sensitive to the news of Faith's imprisonment, tried to lie down and sleep before the night shift, but couldn't fight off the oppressive thoughts. He went out into the yard and ran into Miranda, who had been bought. Have you heard of Lisa? Asked Mason. Well, I don't think she'll ever be here again, gloomily replied the friend. Livingston is going to exonerate Lisa. I probably couldn't do that. I'd be afraid of getting caught. I'm scared too. The guys walked toward Sarajevo and sat down in their usual seat. Miranda looked around. There was no one around and quietly said, I have an uncle who says he wants to fight the bandits himself. I said we have to be ready for any surprises. No one knows where their men are sitting. They say the mayor himself is tied up with them, but there's no proof of that. The cops are sitting there like they're dead. Nothing's moving, and the hostages are getting smaller. They ain't getting fed. There's no one left to save and protect. What do? We have to stop them from seeing something to make them sleep. How do you send them off? Very simple. In the warehouse where I work, there's wine in huge bottles that these subhumans drink. They've spiked with poison. What if they get caught? Mason's worried. It is spiked when no one will see. Miranda replied nonchalantly. It's still dangerous. Some of your own people will get poisoned. I'm living dangerously now. If they bring me poison, I can give it to you. Can you also try out for your team? Well, no, I can't. We hang different bread in the same tea rooms. White flour for the bandits and rye flour and sawdust for the public. The poison could go to the wrong address. Think about it. See if you can figure it out. I wish those scum were dead. I hate them. I'm gonna get revenge for Lisa. The guard was looking for workers at the bakery gate. See if anyone was carrying stolen bread. The last one was Mason. The man looked for him, found nothing. Suddenly, someone pulls out a hand with a loaf in it. He came at the guy with a rubber truncheon. Mason fell to the floor. They started kicking him. When the guard stepped back, the guy remained motionless from a cut lip began to bleed. 2 workers who were watching from afar picked the guy up and dragged him out of the gatehouse. One of the workers mumbled and knocked the guy down by 1 bun, so that the redhead would choke on that bun. Mason, are you alive? The other worker asked. Mason just waved his head in response. Why did you need that bun? You almost lost your life for it. I wanted to give it to Kelly. She loves it. Who's Kelly? My favorite girl, Mason whispered. You can't take the rolls to Kelly now, said the first worker. How do you know? Maybe she'll come to him herself. Mason, he's not on his feet, said the second worker. Let me carry him on my shoulders. How much does he weigh? No heavier than a sack of flour. Mason was lying on the bed with his eyes closed. His mother came over, lightly touched his forehead with her hand, said, "Thank God, today is the first time in 2 weeks there's no fever. It's time to get well." Mason opened his eyes, smiled weakly. "Mommy will get well." It had been 2 weeks. Mason was surprised, frightened, because he immediately thought of Kelly, how she had lived there during that time. "You were in a fever for so many days you thought you wouldn't make it. Thank you so much to the doctor. He came by, gave her shots. Said you had kidney damage. Are you hungry?" "No, but only thirsty. I'll get you some warm milk I bought at the market today," your mother said, and went into the kitchen. Mason got worried and thought, "I need to get to Kelly urgently. She won't survive on her own." He struggled to get out of bed, limping to the chair where his clothes were hanging. He dressed quickly. His mother came in and asked in surprise, "Where are you going, Mason?" "I have to go right away." "You are so weak. Where are you going?" "Tell me. I'll go myself." "No, you can't. I'll do it. I really need to." "I won't let you go fast," said the mother of the road. "I really need it. I'll die if I don't see her." "That's it. I guessed it. Some girl keeps calling you. Let's go to her together." "No," I answered the son, and limped out. The mother went to the window, looked after her son, saying, "Wah, my dear child. This is my son. He stole a bun at the bakery and almost died. What kind of love is such a deadly love?" The door to the room was wide open. Some of the women's clothes were lying around in the empty room. Mason hesitated a few steps away. Looking around, he asked himself, "What's wrong?" Kelly's somewhere. An unfamiliar grandmother peeked into the room. She looked sympathetically at Mason. "Who's your son looking for?" "A girl lived here, a young woman with a child." "Where is she?" "They took them all away." "When who's with her?" "Well, who are these comrades of mothers with guns? And they didn't bring them back. How will the Shah get them back?" "They say they took them hostage," she answered. In a whisper, "That can't be true." "No, no," the boy shouted. The old woman quickly disappeared behind the door. Mason walked over to the bed, knelt down and stroked the covers. Whispered, swallowing Kelly's tears, "Kelly, my little swallow, what have they done to you? Why? Why? Such a young and beautiful child. I'm sorry I didn't save you. I'm sorry I didn't save you. How can I live, Kelly? What for?" He put his head down on his hands and his shoulders shook with silently crying. Mason playing the violin. She cried just as her heart was crying now to the beat of the music. A father came into the room, listened to the music, put a hand on his son's shoulder. Mason lowered the bow. "Are you feeling better, son? I don't want to stay home anymore. You can't go back to the bakeries. I've arranged with someone I know to take you to deliver the mail." "I don't care," replied the son, who needed to hide from his pain for some work. "You know, everything happens in life. We get beaten, destroyed, and we have to live, survive. That's our main goal. If you want, you can go to your new job tomorrow." "Okay, Dad, I have to study music. The violin forgot my hand." "Study. I won't bother you." The father went out, even though he was strict, felt the pain and sadness that Mason felt. Suddenly, Miranda's naughty face appeared in the doorway, and she shrieked joyfully, "Igor, you have already recovered. Good for you. I'm visiting you. You're lying down. I didn't know. And now you're playing the violin. Why are you so gloomy? I'm wondering how to go on living. Did something happen?" "Kelly's been taken somewhere. I understand the aunt. Remember the one I used to carry the potatoes for? Her kids were all taken away. A week ago, we were driving around in a car, and those gangsters were gone. I hate them all. I can't look at those smug faces. And mine. Kelly, I guess I can't believe it either. Is that why you're so sad? You introduced me to that uncle. I want to fight those scumbags too," says Mason. "That's great. I have an appointment with him in the morning. I'm going to my new job tomorrow. Where? At the post office. Okay, if you want, I'll find you. Agreed, Mason replied. Mason, under the supervision of the muzzle, became a tall man, took out of the carriage bags of newspapers and paper sacks of correspondence stacked in the car, saw his wife and a stranger watching him from afar. He did not stop the work and did not pay attention. When the last sack was loaded with the cart, the warden with a gun went to escort the mail. Only then did Mason approach the friend. It was Mason who said to the stranger's wife, "How is the mail?" asked Mason. "Letters from the colony, service correspondence from the newspaper." "I see. Now listen carefully. Private letters can simply be destroyed. And the service correspondence, take it out of the sacks and give it to me. I'll stand here every day. Do it carefully so no one notices. You got it?" "Aha. In that case, I'll see you tomorrow. Let's hope this helps us find out important secrets. Goodbye, boys." The man winked at the boys and walked towards the footbridge. "How is he doing?" Miranda asked her friend. "Like he looks like a real lynch mob." Mason shrugged his shoulders. "Don't you know the most important thing? I put poison in the wine bottles. And nothing yet. You know when you sing, that's when it gets scary. And now there's a tingle in my heart. I can't even think. If someone innocent drinks this wine, don't drink it. I don't know how many people work there. And they don't drink it themselves first, but give it to someone. Well, then it's all gone. Be careful," Mason warned his friend. Mason carried bags of letters and bags of newspapers. His thoughts were occupied with memories of Dean. He couldn't get over the fact that she wasn't around anymore. He went to her apartment several times, but other people had already moved in. He remembered her smiles, her words, her marvelous face, her tender hands, and a lump clenched his throat, and tears ran to his eyes. And then he hated the whole world that had destroyed her, taken her away from him so beloved and beautiful. When Mason tried to imagine her dead, his heart seemed to stop, and he blamed himself for not bringing her to his parents, for not calling her wife in the way she probably would have survived. Scolded himself for being a cowardly puppy who was embarrassed to call himself the husband of a grown woman. More than anything, right now he hated the invaders who had come and brought death and great misery with them. People not caring about their safety. He was willing to do anything to avenge his beloved. As soon as the warden guard turned away to light a cigarette, Mason ripped open the sack a little, snatched a few envelopes and hid them behind his sinus. Then he continued carrying the sacks. He looked at the platform and saw his friend sigh with relief. Finally, when he saw the car loaded, the guard went to follow the mail. Mason walked along the platform, looked around, quickly approached the new owner, gave him the letters, went by himself. Then he sat down on the platform, weighed his feet, and smiled happily, throwing off the anxiety and tension from his soul. He did not notice Miranda running up to him excitedly. Frightened, said, "The patriot himself is looking for me." "How do you know?" "In the morning, when I was approaching the warehouse, our cleaning lady met me and said that they are already waiting for me there and that you—" "I will not go to work. I will come to you. Now we have to hide." "With who? Who needs the hassle? Can we go to our classmates?" "Aha! They're just waiting for me there. Do you believe my neighbor's mother? What am I going to tell my mom?" "Worried?" Miranda asked. "I'll talk to your mom myself when I get home from work. Right now, you run around to Livingston's and stay out of sight." Mason reassured his friend. Livingston and Miranda had dinner. The hostess put on the table potatoes, vegetable salad, a jar of cucumbers, and invited the guest to eat expensive potatoes. "There's no meat. Well, thank God. I'm taking care of myself. Now I don't feel like living. Life has lost its meaning. It's not worth dying early. What can you do? It's fate. I understand, baby. But I can't live without my daughter. It's not her. It's my judgment. There's nothing I can do about it. My daughter saw it. There was a knock on the glass. Livingston pulled back the curtain. saw a man, and went to open it. As soon as the guest entered the room, the hostess invited him in. "Sit down, Mason. Let's get to the table. We'll have potatoes." "Thank you. I'm full." "How are you here?" "It's just the way we are." "What did my mom say?" Miranda asked. Mason thought about how to tell his friend the terrible news, and then said quietly, "She was taken away." Miranda got up from the table and paced the room nervously, thinking to himself, "But why her? It wasn't her fault. She has a heart condition. She doesn't even know what happened to me. My mom's not gonna survive this. What am I supposed to do? Let's think about it together. Let's talk to my father. I know what to do." Miranda suddenly said confidently. "What are you going to do?" asked Livingston. "Say, pile me up with wine. I'm going to die anyway." "I don't need anything. I'm going to go save my mom." "Wait, take your time. Try to stop my friend Mason. There's no point. Every minute is killing her. I have to hurry." He threw his sweater over his shoulders and ran out of the room. Mason followed him. Livingston was alone. She sighed, wiped away her tears, and whispered, "Children. Children, how hard it is to give them, how hard we make them grow up, and so quickly take their greatest value from us. And now what? Emptiness." Mason's parents didn't sit down to dinner. They were expecting their son, who had gotten off work. "What are we going to do with this guy? There's already a curfew and no curfew at all." "Bitter," the mother said. "Kate wrong. Doesn't think we worry and fret here at all. Alone we have it, I think, as it is on our son," replied the father. "How hard can it be? You never know what to expect the next moment, such an unpredictable life. And why do these bandits keep creeping and creeping, as if there is no other land? They're in all the stores, not even in the hospital. Their agents and spies are everywhere. Like a third eye in the back of their head, they can see everyone, watch everyone. Patriot has taken over the whole city. It's a bloodbath. How could it have come to us? People don't know how to live in peace and harmony. That's why God is punishing us for our sins. We have to get out of here. It's high time we quit in secret." Jacob came into the room and guiltily said they were saying Mason had been captured and put in the detention center. "Oh my God. Oh my God. Why?" Longman cried. "I don't know." "Who told you?" asked the father. "Jacob's place is cold." Looking from under his eyebrows, some uncle came to the yard and warned I was there with my little ones. At first I didn't believe him. What if it's not true that he's in jail? The uncle told me to tell you. I keep waiting. Maybe Mason will show up, and it's all a lie. I see Mason's not here, so I thought I'd tell you. Thanks for telling, Jacob. Go home. Good night, said Jacob and went out, suffering from the fact that it was he who had brought the bad news to his friend's parents. The mother cried out, but her husband stopped her abruptly. In short, one should not mourn for the living. I'll go to my acquaintance. Maybe he's heard something about our Sophia. It's curfew time. How will you go if something happens to you? I'll go crazy. What can your comrade do? We have to go to the authorities. What authority? This gang of murderers can hire a lawyer. What lawyers? They judge without a trial. Do they need people? They say they take them all just to show the appearance of police action. Vladimir McAllister went to the door. His wife's eyes filled with fear and tears bloodied with a broken head, with a terrible antique blue face. Mason stood in front of an unfamiliar man who had a rather handsome appearance. Who taught you to tear up bags of service mail? The man asked sternly. I didn't tear anything. When I picked up the sack, it was already undermined, and under the weight of it, it had completely separated. Mason replied, We're starting to lose mail. Who are you passing it on to? I didn't take anything, and I didn't pass it on. I'm gonna have to beat it out of you. Mason nodded to the men at the door, and they began their interrogation. Mason remained sternly silent, as if he felt no pain or suffering. They began to beat him. They moved back to the window. The man took a drag on his cigarette, then nervously flicked it away. grabbed a bucket and poured water on Mason. The young man almost died, but never said anything. Amble was picked up by the boys under his arm and dragged out the door. Are your parents not enough or not enough? We used to send such people to Siberia for hard labor for life. Do you understand? You need to be beaten to knock all the nonsense out of your head. Whispering in the warden's ear and poking the boy's sides with heavy, big fists. McAllister met the warden of the prison at night as he was returning home from duty. Good night to you, sir. I come to you with my grief. I know, but he's not in prison. He's been taken by others. Do you know who? What did they take him for? Will the police sleep for another year, while our people are disappearing for no reason? They say he's been passing letters to someone. Who knows who he is? Do you know what happened to Mayorov's son and mother? Miranda was my friend. It's not good. They've been sent straight to the hostages. Tomorrow they want to kill them one by one. They're fed up with us. He's trying to influence us to leave them alone. Don't tell anyone Miranda's being held hostage. I think you should go to the doctor, ask him to help you. He's being taken care of. He treats everybody and runs Patriot dispatches. Your boy was beaten up pretty bad and then locked up. What can I do for you? I'll help you. I bow to you. My wife's only hope is in you, and we'll hope for the best. Goodbye. In the basement of the unfinished building together with Mason, there was another man of unknown age, fussy and excessively talkative. He asked Yura, who did not move, lying on the floor, "What did they put you in here for?" "Go and ask those who put you here." "And I don't know," replied the young man, without turning his head. "You can tell me everything. I'll talk like a grave. You're not a priest for me to confess to you. Young man, you are sorry. I want to help you, but I don't know how. I'm not sorry for me. I don't need it. You have no patron, and I'll probably beat you too. Calm down, you hear me?" "Yeah, I'm quiet. Shots rang out in the silence. The neighbor sighed nervously and spoke again. "Yesterday, when I went outside, I saw a girl who was very beautiful. She was standing next to the bandits and talking nicely with them. And in her arms is a baby," said the mistress of the Patriot himself. "Techno, I hate your voice. You're just like a crow," yelled Mason. At the thought of Kelly, he was furious. At those words, "What are you commanding here?" You see his green. And that's where you're supposed to be in command. The treasure, the lock. The doors jumped. A big man came in, said in an indifferent voice, "The traitor's last wish is to get out of the will." Mason rose with difficulty, took the purse from his hands, looking into it. There was a bottle of milk and bread. Put the gear on the table. Bondi beckoned the boy with him. The neighbor was left alone. As he approached the table, he looked around warily, muttered, "Maybe they're taking him to be massacred. I don't want these to go to waste." He looked into the bag, and his eyes lit up with a hungry gleam. Longman was sitting by the table, stroking the case, Mason on the violin. And tears poured down her face. "Mason, Mason, my dear children, I seem to remember your first words, your first step. And then I didn't care," she whispered. "How could I not feel in my soul that you were in danger? What was I doing? Cooking dinner, waiting for you to come home from work while you were being beaten." Her husband came into the room, and the woman stared, waiting for news of her son. "Our Mason is alive. And on that we will thank God," he said. "They beat him badly, no mercy, and they continue to beat him." The mother choked, holding back her sobs, and suddenly began to sob, "My dear son, how can I help you? How can I save you? It is better for me, God. Let death only keep my child alive. You can't mourn the living." Her husband shouted at her, "Where can I go from this despair? The grief is unbearable. Go to the doctor, pay him for his help. He'll help you escape. But don't take any of your things. We'll save our son and leave. I arranged everything with someone else's papers. I bought us tickets. Who was supposed to go? He can't. These bandits are worse than animals. If a beast isn't hungry, It won't touch a man. But these are ready to destroy everyone. Did they take Miranda and her mother hostage too? My God, why them? She was a sickly woman. What could she do against Miranda for her half of the poison? And ended up killing 5 of the Patriots' minions. And he didn't drink that stuff. He doesn't sit at the same table with his men. He drinks cognac in his mansion. We should blow it up together with the house, and then leave. Mother shook her head bitterly and said, so much around this horrible world, even children turn into killers, mercilessly destroys them. And those who survive, how to exist further with such a burden on their souls? He who kills another, first of all kills a man in himself. A beastly nature takes up residence in his heart. I don't believe a common criminal would like it. Everybody wants money, and the devil's temptation with inhuman ideas, which leads people on people. Man against man. Remember, there was a guy in the bakery, such a smiling, pleasant man. They came and recruited him. They lured him with a lot of money, became a killer. And the bakery was empty for a long time with broken windows. Livingston came into the room all dressed in black, with a black scarf on her head, and said, I'm sorry to hear about you neighbors. I heard about your trouble. If there's anything you need, just say the word. I don't hold on to this world. I'm not going anywhere. I don't want to go. That's it. I feel like my Lisa is coming and calling me. I looked around. There's no one there. Yesterday on the other side of the street, I saw a girl like my Lisa with a long black braid and a blue dress. I rushed after her, shouting, calling. She didn't hear me, didn't look back. While I ran across the street, she went into the yard and disappeared. Maybe my Lisa isn't in the colony, just hiding out at people's houses. Yes, God willing she's here, God willing, said the landlady. And you hang in there. Mason's a smart guy. Maybe he'll run away. I'll go. I'm going to walk around town. Maybe I'll meet my daughter. Livingston walked out, and the owner said sympathetically, she must be hallucinating from the nervous shock. Poor woman. Longman replied, clutching the violin case to her chest. You know I have music in my ears all the time, like Mason is playing in the next room. I can't hold back the tears, and I cry and cry. If tears helped, I'd cry too. Sometimes a life hangs in the balance just so he doesn't get killed, just to stay alive. I'm going to that doctor. We'll call him and write it all off. A new life will begin. Trust me. A huge big guy led Mason down the hallway, holding his hand and whispering, be patient, not admitting guilt. They have no proof. Maybe it'll all work out. Do you have to run? I'll tell you how. Like a wife. Keep him here somewhere quiet. A man opened the cellar door, shouted in an angry voice to the marching place, and not Muammar here. Mason, dragging his feet heavily, walked in before his, lay exhausted, slumped over. His neighbor looked at him and muttered, come on. I thought you were going to get killed. Look, give me a break. Mason replied, you weren't beaten. Did you confess? Who the hell are you? A sitting duck. You think I'm weak, said the boy. Got up, went to the table, saw an empty purse. Where's my bread? Where's my milk? I ate it all because I thought you weren't coming back. Mason shouted frantically at his roommate. I'm bleeding you dry. Mason cowardly ran to the door, started fussing and calling for help. The big guy showed up and distracted Mason. What's the matter? The warden asked. He ate my gear, said Mason. Stay quiet so you don't make a sound. Next time, I will give him the gear in the name of justice, said he, and walked out of the door. Shots rang out in the yard. Another gunfight. It happens here. The cops send their agents out, hopes to catch the man in charge. One of these days, you're gonna get killed too, said the cellmate with a vengeance. Heaven knows when and who to pick up. Maybe I shot you so you wouldn't stink up the place, Mason replied. In the sky. You're wrong. God has withdrawn from us. The devil has come to earth. He buys our souls with our spilled blood, and we serve him. Shut up, Because I'm gonna start killing that devil inside you. Silence, silence. In the night, Mason woke up to a gunshot and listened. What do you think it is? Cautiously asked the neighbor. I don't know. Maybe the cathedral we have such decided to save, answered Mason. It will come. This power cowardly police all sits. Already like a month they will come to us. You know what kind of power the bandits have? One explosive so much that you can level the whole city to the ground. And they have women and children there, mines encased as a raid, so everything will fly. The guard's commands were heard in the corridor. The door of the cell swung open. The order to leave sounded. God, that's it. The neighbor got nervous. Shut up. Mason stopped him. The hostages quickly dressed and went out into the corridor, which was crowded. They were taken out into the courtyard, put in columns of 4 and led somewhere, and then they were taken outside the construction site and chased down the street by guards with rifles. It was cold. Autumn's piercing wind was selling through the light Mason jacket angrily caught by dogs. The unknown was filling the soul with fear. The column of hostages turned from the main street into a narrow alley, and here everyone was horrified to see other bandits with guns. What they saw made Mason feel nauseous all over his body. His anger at these men made him dizzy. He thought of Kelly. Rage clouded his judgment. The big guys handed out shovels to the hostages and ordered them to dig holes. The men took the job at gunpoint. No one knew what lay ahead, but everyone thought about their life and death. He remembered how upset his father had been if his son went out of his way not to come home. And then Kelly, who had also disappeared among those non-humans, presented herself, and the fear of death receded, as if the girl had reassured him and promised a meeting in eternity. When the pits were dug, the prisoners were ordered to stand on the edge of the black gaping abyss, not frightening but beckoning. Mason, before he could think it was the end, he heard several gunshots overhead. The hostages, as soon as they noticed that the ambassadors were distracted and not paying attention to them, they started running away. One rushed after them drunk and staggered backwards, fell, and smashed his head on the curb. Others rushed to save the man, but it was too late. Confusion began. The 2 hostages jumped into the hole where Mason had fallen in fear, lying quietly wounded. Something hurts. Get up, quick. It's probably time we got free. The men helped the dazed Ura out of the pit, threw a strange cloak over him, pulled a hat over his head so that no one would recognize him. Mason's mother stood at the window and waited anxiously for her husband, who had once again gone to a friend's house to learn something about her son. She thought bitterly that the bandits were probably out of their minds and had no pity for the little ones or the old. In the city it was said that the police went into direct collision with the criminal group. And then nothing was clear. The case was heading for a tragic conclusion. Now the bandits continue to hunt down those who didn't have time to hide. How can they live after this atrocity to eat and drink? These thoughts made the woman's heart ache more than ever. It was now that she was most afraid for her son. Finally, she saw her husband in the yard and rushed to open the door with the question, "Well, how bad is it?" "Mason is missing," McAllister replied. "And no one knows where." "Apparently not. There's a lot of people trying to get put down. Officers came in and scared everybody off. They didn't get anybody. They got hurt before they let the thugs go. It's no use. They took the hostages and hid them somewhere. It's over. Now the police can't clean up the mess. My God, he could have been hurt in the confusion." The woman was scared. The doctor promised to help. "If anything comes to light, don't worry too soon. I've already got the tickets. We should leave now so they don't come after us. The most unbearable thing for me is that my child is nowhere to be found, and I can't do anything to help. How can I help if he is in the clutches of beasts?" Longman knelt before the icon and prayed, "Lord Jesus, you are the Mother of God. Understand my pain and don't let my child die. He is still so little in the world. Save his life. Help him to be free. Lord, forgive me for my sins, willing and unwilling. Take my life. If you need sacrifice in place of my child, save him from Iceland and leave him in this world." In the cellar where the remaining hostages were put back in, the doctor and the big guy from security were leaning over Mason. They looked at each other in silence. The neighbors were trying hard to see what they were doing to Mason. "Injections for another week," the doctor said. "Good," the big man said. "What kind of disease does he have?" "Could be contagious. Kidney damage. Hence the fever and loss of consciousness. Nothing to worry about." The doctor replied calmly, "Please give the patient water if he asks for it. Perhaps you too will have someone to support you in a difficult life case." "All right, doctor, I want nothing." It was unbearably hot. The sun was blinding his eyes. He wanted Kelly to get him a drink. She guessed, herself, carrying a whole bottle of water. The adoption of blonde hair touched his still eyes and lips. They were close together. He reached up to her neck and felt a terrible emptiness. Kelly was suddenly gone. He began to call out to her, unable to hear his own voice. And then Mason was falling asleep. His roommate shook him by the shoulder and asked him what he wanted. Mason asked for a drink. Look at him. He wants to sing. Nearly killed me for a bottle of milk, then asks for a drink. I'd like something strong to drink too. A neighbor came up and helped me drink a cup of water. The guy opened his eyes and looked at the camera. Lying down, writing on it. I know how many days you've been lying here like a dead man. Say something. Why don't you say anything? Hello. I'm sorry. Why did I beat you for milk? Weak. Mason smiled. Goodbye. Goodbye. Just live. You don't know how I suffer. While you were lying here as still as you were, but I had no one to talk to. A doctor will come and give you a shot, and then go. I almost went crazy with loneliness, and you're still lying there. You don't live and you don't die. I talk to you. I tell you my whole life. I don't remember anything. If we don't get killed, I don't tell you a whole bag of fables. Tell me something funny. Well, listen. There was a young man, just like you. And when he went outside, he was carrying a bag. It's heavy. He is happy that my bag is arranged well, extinguished trumps, sat down to lunch, pulls out who what? Bread, lard, eggs. And this guy untied his bag, and there's salt. He mixed up the bags and took the bag with salt instead of food. The man laughed. Mason, looking at him, laughed too. They laughed looking at each other and forgot about everything in the world. The door slammed shut. A burly man came into the room and looked at them threateningly and asked, "Have you gone crazy here, or what?" "No, I told this young fool a joke. I made him laugh. He seems to be coming back to life," said the prisoners, coming back to life. "It's up." Mason got up, and he got sideways. But he held on, stepped as many steps as he could and said, "It's all right. I'm on my feet. In that case, I'll put you to work. No more wasting our supplies. We've had enough of this." Found time for a laugh. "So it's not more here." He leaned over to Mason and whispered for him to go outside with him soon. "You've had your fun. Now they'll make us work for bandits," said the neighbor and sighed nervously. "So what? It's good to get some fresh air. And if they start beating us again for doing something wrong, you're a big bum, uncle. Work kills horses, especially if you feed them salt." Mason laughed. "Well, salt is the best food for a fool." They laughed softly, trying to stifle their laughter. It made their faces wrinkle painfully. The hostages were now working in the yard of some wood shop. Mason was shocked that he had a knack for carpentry classes. A big guy came up to him and yelled, "Move. What's the matter?" "There's a lot of deadbeats here. I'm leaving." He whispered quietly to Mason, "Now's a good time to run away. There's a board torn off in the fence. Your parents will be waiting for you in your new apartment at the station address. I'll throw it under your feet. Pick it up and thank Kelly later. Tell her she stood up for you. She could be killed for that." Mason replied excitedly, They can't kill her, but our former patriot. He almost nailed her. She survived him once, gave birth secretly. She hid well, changed her name, and then got caught on the street begging on the street with a baby in her arms. She's safe now. She's living in wealth, safely under guard. This can't be happening. If you don't run away now, he'll be killed any day now. Mason thought in despair, as if wondering whether to believe this man. Meanwhile, the man had moved to the other side of the courtyard and started yelling at the other hostage. "How are you holding it? You've got your hands on the wrong end. Hold it steady." Mason cautiously looked around the workshop courtyard. The guard stood with his back to him, looking very busy. The boy, approaching the fence, looked around once more, then quickly pushed back the board to climb over the opening to the other side of the fence. He wanted to run, but his legs felt as if they were stuck to the ground. They were heavy and obedient. He felt like he wasn't running and could barely move. A shot rang out. Mason stood still for a moment. The second shot seemed to revive him, and he ran with all his might. Longman and Livingston fought and distressed each in his own way. I dreamed for days as if Lisa were standing under the window. I run out on the porch. She's nowhere to be found. Screaming, crying, "Lisa, my daughter, where are you?" And then I woke up screaming my heart out. "Oh, Livingston, what ails you is what you dream," answered Mason's mother. "I'd like you to go to Giuliano. What's in store for him? She's a good fortune teller. You mustn't tell fortunes. It's a great sin. Who knows what you can and can't do? If they told me where my Lisa was, I'd live to find out." Sobbing little Livingston. Their eyes wiped with a handkerchief. The door opened wide. Mason appeared on the threshold. The mother jumped up, shrieked, stood still for a moment, then rushed toward her son. She hugged him and kissed him. "Son, you've been helped at last. The doctor refused to help us at all. I didn't want to help you escape for any money. But I believed. I ran away, Mom. I need to hide. Oh my God, where can I hide you? We have to go. All the tickets are ready, and we're waiting for you." The mother reread everything, touched her son's hands, shoulders, face, as if not believing in his return. "You can't, Mom. All the guides are dependent on the bandits. I'll be captured at once. Let him come to me. Soon he'll be in the cellar underground. I'm old and infirm, bandits don't walk. The Stones know they've taken everything. All right, let him go for now. We'll see afterward. I'll take the violin," said Mason, taking the case under my arm. "And kids, I'll get you something to eat right away. Don't worry, stay at home. And if they come here, say you don't know anything. And I'll feed Mason," Livingston said. "I'm happy to have a living soul in the house." The neighbor and Mason went out. Longman looked at her son through the window, crossed herself, and began to pray. The father came out, looked at his wife questioningly. Seeing her tears, she had a joyful face and told Mason he was back. She escaped. Who helped? Didn't say. But where is he? Why didn't he agree to come with us? Father asked excitedly. He is hiding at Livingston's. You cannot go everywhere and in the guide they're minions. Thank God. Many thanks to the doctor. Couldn't have done it without his help. Now we must think of a way to get Mason out of town. Out of the fire and into the fire, the mother said at a loss. Well, what can we do? Maybe he'll live. But what's in store for us when, God forbid, we're captured? Only death. Mother sighed and heard the sound of a car. Father glanced warily out the window and said, Get ready to meet the guests. They're coming to us. Found them. I'm ready to die, just to keep Mason alive. Father and Mother stood by the table, frozen in anticipation. Mason played Mozart's violin, and all the sublime music fulfilled the room. Livingston listened, and tears poured from her voice. There was a knock at the door. The woman fussed fearfully, raised the floorboards, let Mason into the cellar, threw down the mat, set down the sack of potatoes, and only then let Jacob in. Hello, Mistress. The guest said hello. Bless you. Jacob, What good news? I'm here to see Jura. No, I have Mason. I've got Mason's father sending me to tell him some good news. I know he lives here. And what news is that? We're going to liberate the city. Well, look, Jacob's making up some hero stuff, too. You don't believe me. Mason and I are friends. Livingston let Mason out of the basement. The guys hugged. Jacob asked. Nothing. I'm tired of sitting around listening to every sound. Like my parents' people, patriots. Came twice, beat them up, but they didn't recognize anything. Especially your mother is very worried about you. Parents are in trouble, no matter how bad it is. They raised their son. He escaped from the hostages. So go to the liberators again under bullets, Auntie said bitterly, and I'll go to Mason. Today outside the city will be waiting for us connected with the squad. I have to run away too. They're grabbing everyone now. And how will we get across the bridge? Jacob, with an important look, pulled out a piece of paper from his pocket. Look at the document I've prepared for you. I have the same one. And the signature is real. Isn't that the most important one? I took it out. I got it. You know, when they catch me, it's the end. I don't want to go back to the basement. I don't want to give up. I'd rather die. Don't worry. Here are 2 grenades, one for you and one for me. I'll take my chances. My God, what a terrible time. Life is worthless. Children are ready to die as if they'd never lived a century. Livingston cried. Thank you so much for everything. Auntie said, Mason, you will. How will you be in town? Take care of you. God is here, at least go out of town. Goodbye, smiled Jacob. Mason dressed, took the violin case under his arm, put a grenade in his pocket. The guys went outside, the wind whipping through, frowned, lifted the hood. It's a pity Miranda is not with us. That's okay. We'll meet up. Pity Mason. Don't you know? I thought he was missing. Jacob objected. That's not true. The caretakers told me that Miranda wanted to run away. God forbid it should be so. Mason and Jacob walked through the familiar streets of their hometown. And now it was hostile. For here at every moment, death awaited them. A large humpback bridge appeared ahead, and on it a booth, near which 2 guards were stomping. Mason had not seen them before, so he was calm that they did not know them. Who are the former construction workers on guard today? They're not beasts like the others. Should we skip? The guys approached the big guy. One demanded ID. Mason, disregarding the order, took out a violin case, gave it to Jacob to hold, and himself played. You builders are centurions. Men. Smiling, listening to the melody, people gathered, listened shocked by the art of the young musician and the magical sounds that poured from under the bow. When the music subsided, the big man waved his hand, which meant come in. Mason hid behind Jacob. The boys walked quickly across the bridge. As soon as the checkpoint was out of sight, they laughed triumphantly and hugged each other. Thank you for your ingenuity, Mason, joyfully shouted out Jacob. Freedom, said they moved towards the forest. Mason breathed a full sigh, looked back at the city, and a melody that he had once composed for Kelly began to play in his heart. Lotta stood over the patriot's bed with a smile on her lips. The man was subdued, no longer breathing. She had once wanted to tie her lover to her with drugs, and then she had known true love with him, with Mason. So she swore to herself that at the cost of her life, she would save not only her only lover, but the whole city. A fragile blonde girl won the confrontation with what could not overcome an army of police officers. Lotta picked up the phone, dialed a familiar number. Hello. Hello, Daddy.
Subscribe and click the bell.
Mason was stuck in traffic for the 2nd hour. He was supposed to be at a birthday party for an investor half an hour ago. Drove straight from the clinic. Didn't even stop home to change. Miranda's wife called every 10 minutes to remind him not to be late, but he was. Such a terrible traffic jam was not part of the plan. It's unclear what happened there. The cars were standing dead. Every 5 minutes they'd move a meter and then stop again. All the cars behind, in front, on the side were already considered, and the drivers could be considered familiar. That car overtook by half a meter and now lagged behind by 1.5 meters. What kind of fun is that? In front, an old man in a Ford, some sticks with red rags on the ends sticking out of the trunk. On the left is a girl in an Audi, always talking on the phone and occasionally glancing at Mason with interest. On the right, the most desperate or the most brazen occasionally fly by on the side of the road. What's ahead of them is unknown. Mason wouldn't be nervous at all. Well, a traffic jam and a traffic jam. Finally able to rest, but imagined what Miranda would tell him when he arrived. Well, if he did. It's the wife calling again. Where are you? I don't know what to say anymore. Everyone's here asking about you. Don't you realize how important it is for you to be here? I don't really understand the importance, and I don't understand what I'm doing there either. But I'm going. I can't fly over this traffic. Can't or won't. Miranda, I'll be there as soon as I can. Mason dropped the call. He doesn't need this reception. Let the investors talk to the clinic management. Why invite the department heads? What's the joy of celebrating a birthday in a crowd of people you don't know? Mason saw this investor once at the clinic. All of a sudden, he's so honored to be invited, and with his wife. He would have preferred to go home, spend a quiet evening, finally read 2 interesting articles sent to him a month ago. Instead, he goes to some party where he has to keep a straight face and socialize with uninteresting people. He's also indecently late. Miranda, unlike her husband, was glad of the invitation. She rarely got to attend receptions of this caliber. Or did she not want to look at others as much as she wanted to show herself? She realized that no one in this high society was interested in a school teacher herself. But she is with her husband, and this husband, damn him to hell, cannot get there. But those who ride on the side of the road go somewhere, don't they? Why don't you try it? Mason pulled off to the side of the road, rode the potholes for 500 miles, and got stuck in traffic again. Now on the side of the road. The curb ended, and the only way to get through was on the road. And those who patiently stood in a row were not in a hurry to let those who liked freebies through. They wanted to cheat fate. So stand there now, and in another half hour, Mason was back in the lane. Ahead of him was a Ford with sticks and red rags. What he left was what he came back to. It's ironic. Looks like he's only coming to the appointment to pick up his wife. That's fine. It's a shame about the time, though. We're finally getting going. And soon the cause of the traffic jam became clear. A terrible accident, 3 cars and 1 truck. Rescuers from the cars were scrambling around, pulling people out. Broken cars, machinery, as scrap metal moved to the curb, freed 1 lane for traffic. Drivers cautiously detoured around the crash site. Mason saw the wrecked cars of rescuers and ambulance doctors. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed a man sitting on the ground near the truck's tire, a man with a crazed look, clearly in shock, and swerved toward the accident. A lifeguard immediately ran up to him. "Get back on the road. This isn't a circus. I'm a trauma doctor." "Well, and go ahead and do your job." There were 10 victims, all with serious injuries. The guy was badly hurt. His spine was severed, and a young woman who rescue workers couldn't get out of the car for a long time. Her 3-year-old daughter, scared and crying, was examined in the ambulance. Doctors dealt with the heaviest. The others with fractures and injuries were waiting their turn. That's who Mason took care of. The ambulances were leaving, taking out the injured, and others were coming in to replace them. Everything that needed to be done was done. There was nothing more Mason could do. Called the clinic. Prepped the OR, they're bringing in a spinal injury. I'll be right there. Before he left, he approached the truck driver who was still sitting by the tire. He was sedated. He's got a clearer look in his eyes. Any injuries? Need any help? No, it's my fault, doctor. What's gonna happen to me now? Not my question. You, boy, pray to God that everyone lives. He never made it to his appointment. He didn't answer his wife's calls. He spent half the night dealing with the injured guy, passed out right in the office, and in the morning began the usual, endless hospital business. I didn't get home until the evening. Miranda had cooled down a bit during the day. If her husband had arrived in the morning, she would have thrown a scandal, not at all in the tradition of their intelligent family. How many times? She realized Mason wasn't just a good doctor. He was a first-rate specialist with a name and credibility. He works hard, takes on the most difficult cases, and manages to lecture. He's got time for everything except his wife. They do not go on vacation, do not spend weekends together. Every evening spent at home is like a copybook. He arrived, had dinner, tried to read some article in a scientific journal, and without finishing, fell asleep. That was it. Miranda did not remember when and what they talked about. There was no time, nothing to talk about. Most importantly, no desire. When their lives became separate and love was replaced by indifference. Miranda didn't remember. If she told Mason now that their marriage was cracking at the seams and their life together was more like good neighborliness, he would be surprised. What was wrong? Is everything okay? Really fine. No scandals, no cheating, quite a secure, quiet life without troubles, without love, without happiness. The most unbearable thing is that it's impossible to forget how happy they were. Miranda, a young, only after the Institute, teacher with enthusiasm took up the education of the younger generation in a separate school, where she was sent by the teachers of English. She sacredly believed that the power of words can protect students from bad deeds. The main thing is to explain correctly what is good and what is bad. The beautiful impulses of her soul touched her students. They agreed not to upset Miranda. They only seemed to take patronage over the young idealist. They were sure they, in their 13 years about life, know much more than their naive Miranda. All the class went on hikes, to screenings of movie novelties, went to a skating rink or a beach volleyball tournament. In this way, in mutual illusions, Miranda brought her class to graduation. Apparently, her pedagogical efforts were not in vain, because after graduation, the students did not disappear from her life. They congratulated her on her birthday and Christmas, came to her with their troubles and just to chat. Teachers with great experience and merit thought that such trusting relations with students were an indicator of professional unsuitability. Our business is to educate. To make friendly relations with students is the height of unprofessionalism. There is not enough soul and time for everyone. It's probably just envy. For some reason, they didn't come to them to pour their hearts out. That's where Miranda met Mason at school. He was 12 years older than her. A mature and confident man. His son went to that school, and one day, instead of Mom, Dad came to the parent-teacher conference, passionate about his work. Somewhat out of step with the canons of pedagogy, the teacher had caught Mason's eye. He'd been divorced for 3 years, no contact with his wife at all. The separation was too nasty, and he saw his son occasionally. This day he went to a parent-teacher conference for the first time in his life because the ex-wife suddenly called and went hysterical, demanded that he immediately drop all this fucking business and run to the school to save his son. From what to save, did not explain why she herself does not run, was, in general, understandable, was not able to. Mason understood that nothing terrible, most likely, did not happen, but went to school. Gotta stay on top of things. And suddenly Ethan really needs to be rescued. After the meeting, Mason approached Miranda. He really didn't understand why his wife was so hysterical. A C in physics, a conflict with a classmate. It's not a catastrophe. Normal school life. Unpleasant, sure, but no reason to declare a rescue mission. Miranda confirmed there's no problem. Ethan is a wonderful boy, a bit withdrawn, but kind and talented. Mason has already realized that she has everyone wonderful, talented. She will justify the worst bully and find a lot of positive qualities in him. Amazing girl, there's not many of those left. Mason always came with flowers, gallant and courteous. Miranda's friend and history teacher Vanessa, in colors, told how the teacher reacts to the fact that this pale moth, infantile girl who does not belong in school picked up such a groom. Our women are jealous. They can't talk about anything but you. For them, teacher and nun are synonyms. You can't have a teaching career if you've got a man, or rather, not like that. You got the wrong guy. If you'd picked up a freak and tortured yourself, but brought him into the world, yeah, and self-sufficient, independent will not appreciate your, and therefore their selfless labor. A happy, loved, prosperous woman, what can she teach her children? How will she prepare them for the rigors of life? Vanessa, you're twisting things around. Half of our teachers are married. There are married ones. There are no happy ones. How would you know? And why are they making you feel bad about it? Why don't they just be happy? Tell me, if I was going to marry a good, positive man, what would you say? I'd wish him happiness. Well, no one wished you happiness. They're all angry and wondering when he'll leave you. Come on, I'm not getting married. And you pull yourself together. Don't give them a reason to gloat. There's no turning back, is there? Miranda fell in love. So serious, so thorough, he even courted as if he had a plan. Everything clear. When, where, what time. It's understandable. It's a job. No free time. The fact that Mason was married didn't bother Miranda. It's odd if a man in his 40s had never been married. That's not what bothered him. He didn't want to hear from his ex-wife. It's odd to have been married for so many years. Son's 15 years old, and Mason never said a kind word about her. What happened between them? Why'd they get divorced? Mason told me he just told Miranda what he thought she needed to know. She'll never be in our lives. I wouldn't think about her at all, but there's a son. I've helped him and will continue to help him. I think you understand. He's a big, smart boy. He likes you. Don't worry, we're gonna be fine. It wasn't just fine. It was great. They took a little wedding trip. They rented a house on the coast in the Alps for a week. Sun, sea, mountains. And nobody but the two of them. Not because there was no one, just no one. Miranda looked at her husband, and in her head there was only one thought: how much I love you. How it happened that of all men on earth the best, the most extraordinary one was hers. She was ready to look at those gray and the most beautiful eyes in the world all day long. No one had ever been so happy. She began to seriously question her mental faculties, so dumbed down in part that she can't think of anything. Just her husband, love, happiness. All the following years, when suddenly a longing came, Miranda remembered a week of boundless and unconditional happiness, and it made her feel warm. She wanted so much to return to that place, to experience the same feelings, to remember how it was to be happy. For 7 years of their life together, She had never traveled anywhere with her husband. Love, of course, did not go anywhere, but became something ordinary, not causing the former delight. When he did not come to that ill-fated reception, Miranda, seriously offended, left alone among strangers. No one cared about her. The doctors at the clinic tried not to leave her alone, but everyone was in pairs. Everyone was a little uncomfortable, basically an intruder. When anyone looked at her, she seemed to be pitied, perplexed as to who she was, what she was doing here. She still hoped Mason would come. When he stopped answering his cell phone, Miranda called a cab and went home. She'd had enough of this embarrassment. At home, she stood in front of the mirror, a tall, slender woman in an elegant dress, with a beautiful and intelligent face looked back at her. She also felt sorry for this beauty. She cried. So much going, dreaming that everyone would appreciate their beautiful couple, would say compliments, and Mason would be proud of his wife. Instead of compliments, indifference, instead of a pleasant evening, longing and loneliness. And now she stands so beautiful, looking at herself and quietly crying that no one needs her beauty, not even her husband. Half the night she cried, half the day she was angry. Then she calmed down. She decided she had nothing to worry about, and now he'll come and explain everything. Mason came. Miranda waited. Nothing. No explanation, no apology. Didn't even ask how she spent the evening. Either he doesn't remember the damn reception, or he thinks it's nothing. Nothing to talk about. She's eating dinner, reading a magazine, about to fall asleep. Here Miranda couldn't stand it, went to her husband, pulled the magazine out of his hands, threw it on the floor, and looking into Mason's surprised eyes, asked, "Where did you go yesterday? Aren't you interested in how I had fun? You left me alone and now you won't even explain." "I had to go back to the clinic, Miranda. I was tired." Mason picked up a magazine from the floor and continued reading. And that's it. Amazing, such impenetrable indifference. It made me feel so bad. What could I do to get him to come out of his shell and show some feeling? Change? Die? I wonder if he'll notice or grumble that he's distracted from work again. Another sleepless night and the desperate loneliness of the morning. This morning was not good, not wise, at least not wiser than the evening. Not a single wise thought had sprung up overnight, what to do about her self-destructive personal life. Miranda decided to take the tried and tested route. We should go to Vanessa. She always had a way of setting things right. Vanessa's loyal friend was a huge fan of Mason's. She thought Miranda was crazy. She thought there were no other husbands like her. She'd know better from experience. She'd been married twice over the years and considered herself an expert on husbands, both her own and other people's. Her first husband was a painter, a musician, a poet. Basically, 3 in 1. Life with him was a holiday. It was exhilarating. Vanessa said it was mostly in her head. He was fun and unpredictable. An unrecognized talent, an underachieving bohemian, a boy who never grew up. Vanessa said her husband was like trained animals at the circus. He seems to be trained, but what to expect from him? It's unclear. And having had fun and tired of the lack of money, Vanessa went to the other extreme. The second husband was a boring middle-aged bureaucrat. Not young, not attractive, but with means and connections. The presence of a young and beautiful wife sharply raised his authority in the eyes of his colleagues. Therefore, he did not spare money for his doll. In addition, his wife is a school teacher, somehow out of status. So now Vanessa taught at the university. Everything would be all right, but Vanessa couldn't stand his boringness for long. She got divorced and received a good apartment in the center of the city as a payoff. Now she was in full chocolate and in active search of the next husband. Vanessa honestly thought her friend was lucky. Handsome, intelligent, and a great doctor. He doesn't bore, doesn't drink, doesn't cheat. What more could she ask for? She'd never had a love like Miranda's before. She was left to dream and envy. She showed up, darker than a cloud with weeping eyes. Why don't you live in peace? Vanessa, he doesn't notice me at all. If I disappear, he'll realize it when he can't find dinner. He doesn't always eat dinner at home, so he won't find me missing right away. He doesn't care about me at all. When I went to college, I consulted with him. I couldn't make up my mind, and he asked me a month ago how I was doing in school. Miranda, aren't you exaggerating? There's something about the nuts and bolts in my head that don't match up. This isn't about Mason. He's a reasonable man. Yeah, he's very passionate about his work, but that's good. Who's so busy working that they forget their wife when they're away? What do you think, woman? Not really. Although maybe it would be better. At least it would be clearer. You, girlfriend, don't take it out on your husband. He's tired. He'll come to his senses and everything will be fine. For men like your Mason, you'll have to look harder. What kind of man I'll put in the basket, take to the forest, throw to the devil? Miranda wistfully advertised. Hey, girlfriend, where'd you pick that up? What kind of art is this? I'll take it out and throw it away. If you throw it out, they'll pick it up. Look, I really don't understand what's wrong with you. There's no such thing as crazy love for life. You've had it, but I haven't. 2 husbands and not one out of this world love. You're lucky, Miranda. Don't piss God off. Maybe you're right. What happened? Here I am again with my melancholy. You're welcome. My vest is always at your service. A few days later, all the news programs started with breaking news. There had been another earthquake. The country watched with bated breath the statistics of the dead and wounded. Rescuers and doctors from all over the country flew to Turkey. Mason was going to be part of one of the teams. Miranda, you understand, I can't not go. I'm needed there now. Don't worry, I'll be home in a week. Miranda watched the news like a bulletin from the front. Once she saw Mason in a story about doctors. Worried and called, he didn't always answer. My heart ached. Chased away the dark thoughts of what might happen. I mean, he stays out of the rubble, helps those who've already been hurt. Suddenly, there's another jolt. More dead and wounded. Mason hasn't called in 2 days, hasn't answered his cell phone. Finally, Mason calls. No, it's not Mason. It's an unfamiliar number. Yeah, I'm listening. Miranda? Yes. Your husband, Mason, was killed in the debris removal. We're very sorry for your loss. We're covering all transportation costs. They're taking what? What transportation? Are they talking about Mason? What do you mean, dead? Is everybody out of their minds? Miranda dialed and dialed Mason's number. He wasn't answering for some reason. I heard some kind of ringing in my ears, then some kind of rumbling. It was someone banging on the door. I got up, went to the door, stood looking at it, didn't know how to open it. Something unpleasant was said to me. I don't remember what. Who's banging on the door like that? There's a bell. Miranda opened it. Behind the door stood Mason's colleagues, doctors from the clinic. So they're here. Mason's not home. There was no birthday party either. Suddenly, it rang clearly in her head. Dead. Condolences. Miranda didn't remember anything else. She woke up when the coffin was lowered into the grave, screamed, rushed, was held, struggled in someone's arms and screamed. The next thing was foggy again. Like Vanessa, like Ethan saying something, feeding her something. When I came to, I was surprised I was alive. No, not surprised. I was upset. Why alive? Vanessa, like a guardian angel, always stood behind me and did not let me fall into the abyss, calming, persuading, drawing prospects, pushing me to action. In short, after a couple of months, you could talk to Miranda without fear of going crazy. To be honest, Vanessa hadn't expected Miranda to be so disturbed. Understandably, a loved one had died, but to be thrown out of her life like that. Vanessa looked after Miranda herself. Miranda recovered, went back to her normal life. It's dreary, but it's manageable. Gone are the thoughts, I can't live without him. I can. At least I'm trying. Things have settled down. I cried at night. Sometimes I forgot to suffer during the day. Then I remembered, but I didn't suffer so much. It was almost 6 months after Mason's death when Vanessa suddenly asked, "Miranda, did you apply for inheritance? What application? Why?" Actually, your husband had property, at least this apartment. By the way, whose apartment is it? Mason. Here. And he has a son Hare. The ex-wife can't claim, but the son can. I suspect that you and Ethan will have to share the apartment, and if you don't enter the inheritance, there will be nothing to share. So run to the notary tomorrow with the documents. That doesn't make any sense. It never occurred to Miranda that she would have to share the apartment she had lived in for so many years. She was used to considering it her own. Only now, after Vanessa's words, she realized that it wasn't. She was registered here. She could not be expelled, but it was not her apartment. The notary turned out to be a young girl with stern eyes and not a solid ponytail on top of her head. She looked at the documents, accepted Miranda's application, and explained that Miranda would inherit half of the apartment, half of the car, and half of the dacha by law. She advised to make an agreement with the second heir, Ethan. How to divide it all? Who gets the car? Who gets the dacha? Who gets the apartment? Miranda was ready to give up the car and the cottage if they gave her the apartment. She simply had nowhere to live. Ethan probably wouldn't mind, but his mom was still there. Some weird message came through. Land and property tax arrears. Miranda thought at first it was for the cottage and apartment, but why in her name? All-knowing Vanessa advised to go to the registry and find out what kind of tricks. Oh, Miranda, I'm having second thoughts. This is not good. The doorbell rang. Miranda said a quick goodbye to James and went to answer the door. Standing outside the door was a not quite sober woman with permanent undyed hair. Shaking her red curls, without waiting for an invitation, she entered the apartment and went room by room. "Who are you?" "I'm Pooh." "Who are you?" "My son, the landlord. I want to live with my son." "You don't have kids. You wouldn't understand, but I'll live with my son." "But Ethan only owns half of the apartment. The other half is mine." "Great. We'll live together, except roommates." "How are we going to divide the rooms?" "Look, you can't be serious. We can't live in the same apartment, can we?" "I wouldn't want to. But if you don't go, we'll have to." "You think about it, and I'll bring my stuff the day after tomorrow." "Well, bye. What do we do now? What do you do in a situation like this?" "Run to a friend?" So Miranda ran. On the way to the little house, Ethan called and asked her to come over. I wanted to know if the idea of living together was her mom's fantasy or their decision. Ethan was not reassured. The decision to squeeze Miranda out of the apartment, Mason's revenge, albeit belated. Ethan had talked his mom down, offered her options. She wouldn't listen. It's not so much the apartment as the desire to show her power. She wouldn't back down. She'd ruin her life any way she could. Ethan left, and the girlfriends were left to grieve. Miranda, why don't you buy half the apartment from her? If there's not enough money, I'll add to it. I'm afraid she won't sell. It's important to humiliate me. She dreams of humiliating me, ruining my life. She won't take money for such a pleasure. Ethan realizes that it's impossible to live like this, but she can't do anything. She has the idea to move in with me. It's fun and revenge for a miserable life. You should have seen her. She's got an ambition to kill me, and she's not going to give up that kind of joy. Look, is she crazy? Is she really going to live with her ex-husband's widow? Looks like it. Move in with me for a while, then you'll have to do something about the apartment, sell it, split it up. I don't know what. Of course, you're on the prowl, and I'm just running around here. No, girlfriend, I'm not my enemy. I don't want to be without a friend. Who do you want to stay with? With that crazy woman in the same apartment? Are you seriously considering that? No, of course not. I have an unfinished palace. I'll go and see it. Where? In the country. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's nothing like that. I only look 200 miles away. I've got to get my mind right. I'll go, I'll think, I'll come to my senses, and I'll decide how to move on. Vanessa, I feel like I need this. If I don't try to start over, I'm gonna die. I don't know. Maybe it will work. It seems like the decision has been made, but it's so scary to change the established, stable life on the incomprehensible prospect of life in the village where I have never been. But then some builders showed up, measured the height of the opening, and asked about the load-bearing walls. Clearly some grandiose renovation was in progress. Woman, are you registered here? Well, live here. No one is forcing you out, and we have an order. Miranda quickly put her things in her bag and rushed to the bus station. Didn't wait for the red-haired vigilante to show up. Enough with the nerves. Though in the queue at the cashier's office, I suddenly remembered that I had a car. I'd been kicked out of my apartment, so at least I could get my car. I didn't doubt that they would sue her for the car. They wouldn't deny themselves such a pleasure. But for now, it was possible to get to the village. Where I'm going? Why, how will I live? Okay, I'll get there. I'll figure it out. Strange village. Not a lantern, not a light. The time is 21 o'clock, and the village is dead. Either they're asleep, or there's no light. So where to next? Where's the Crown Estate? Yeah, there's people here. Apparently, cars are rare here. We crawled out to see if they'd tell us where to go. They did, but they were wary. What kind of a lady comes here at night? The lights are really out. There must be a candle somewhere, but how can you find it here? I shined the flashlight on my phone, found a bed, and went to sleep. I'll figure it out tomorrow. I was hungry, so I ate all the livers I had on the road. I'm going to sleep. There's nothing else. Miranda was sleepy and didn't realize where she was. I guess the countryside. There's no light, but there's a manor house. I have to look around. I'm also very hungry. Is there a store here? Miranda's house was impressive. Nice furniture, big windows, curtains, dishes, fridge, TV, everything. You could see Mason really wanted to live here, all thoughtfully and lovingly arranged. He didn't tell her anything, but he made it look like he consulted her. Miranda wouldn't change a thing about the house. She loved it. The house was abandoned and unkept, but that could be fixed. She stepped out onto the porch. It was beautiful, a real garden. Lilacs blooming, apple trees in pink buds, some bushes, the names of which Miranda did not know. Raspberries sprawled without supervision, growing all over the plot, under the apple tree in a thicket of burdock, stands a table. From a branch, hanging from a rope swing, the ropes are almost rotten. Behind the house, impassable cherry bushes, a solid white wall. Then I'll have to climb the plot to see what else grows here. But now it's not about flowers and berries. I have to find a store and buy groceries because I'm dizzy with hunger. There was salt, sugar, macaroni, a pack of tea, and a bottle of sunflower oil in the refrigerator, which was turned off, probably hidden from the mice. Miranda took out the groceries, turned on the refrigerator, and went to look for the store. From behind a neighboring fence, a woman of about 60 years old looked at her with curiosity, came closer and asked, "Daughter, who are you going to be?" The house was empty. I saw someone walking around the yard today. The owner, Mason, is here, a doctor from the city. Are you his wife? Widow. It was the first time Miranda had ever said that word out loud. It was harsh, hard, hopeless. Divided life into before and after. "Oh, I'm sorry, old fool, minding my own business. My name is Aunt Clara, and I'm Miranda. Can you tell me where your store is? Just down the street. You'll reach the center. There's a store, a school, and the administration. If you need anything, you can come to me." "Come on in." "Thanks, Aunt Clara." Miranda walked down the street, looking at the village. It was interesting and completely different from her idea of rural life. Once, while still studying at the institute, she had gone to visit her friend Adriana. It was her first and only experience of village life. Since then, Miranda was sure that the village was dusty streets with wilted grass, old, ramshackle houses, vegetable gardens with potatoes and cucumbers, and certainly no decorations in the form of flowers and ornamental bushes. A village is poverty, lack of amenities, and hard work. It's no place for flowers, whether that village was in the middle of nowhere or whether things had changed dramatically over time. But now Miranda was pleasantly surprised. There were good houses in the village, a well-tended front garden in front of each yard. Even the streets were not gray and dusty, but green with flowering trees and bushes. The appearance of a new person in the village is an event. As we walked to the store, curious eyes peered out from behind every fence. About 15 times Miranda said hello and explained who she was. Vigilance in the village was at an all-time high. No one would pass unnoticed. Somehow the rumors made it to the store before Miranda. About 10 people came to see the townie. The store was full. No one bought anything. They didn't come for the same reason. They waited, wondering why they came and how long they could hold out. They're not mean people, but they're wary of anything new. They've all studied their own people. It's clear what to expect from whom. This one will give his last shirt. That one's greedy. This one rushes to help everyone. That one's a slacker. But these are all their own relatives, and here we don't know what's arrived. They say she's young and beautiful. Problems too. There are only 3 single men in the village. They don't have enough, and here's a competitor. They looked at Miranda, frankly and appraisingly. They began to ask questions cautiously. "Are you coming to us for a long time? Or just for a week's rest?" "No, not a week. I'll stay here. But I don't know how long." "What are you going to do?" "You're probably a manager or a designer." "You don't know how to work with your hands in the city." "Not really. I'm a teacher." "That's good. We have a big school. We need teachers. But it's hard to live in the countryside. In winter, it gets so snowy you can't leave the house. It's good that we have gas and don't need to heat stoves. And you can't live here without a vegetable garden. They don't bring vegetables here." "Aunt Lisa, don't scare the man. Why are you attacking him?" A saleswoman stood up for Miranda. "I don't bring vegetables. You won't buy them, but I'll bring them if I have to. Who eats these store-bought vegetables? Are we not going to share cucumbers and tomatoes? Come to my place. I still have some potatoes and carrots left. I'll give you some. Thank you. Ladies, do you want to buy anything? If not, go with God. It's a hobby club. Miranda got the groceries. It's a little heavy. And I need a bucket, a mop, dishwashing detergent, window cleaner, and a few other little things. I can't carry everything. You're gonna clean up? Yeah, the house has been closed up since last summer, and it's been filthy. Let's do it this way. You take what you need now, and the rest, along with everything else you need for cleaning, I'll be back in a couple hours. My fiance's here. He's taking me home for dinner. We'll load everything up, and I'll come and help you after work. You'll be cleaning this house for a week. My name's Nancy, by the way. It's embarrassing. Come on. I'm curious to know what kind of bird you are. Let's get to know each other. Oh, I don't have to tell Miranda. The whole village knows. Miranda came out of the store, took a look around. There's a school. You can see the boys running around in the yard, whether it's gymnastics or some kind of training. I'll have to go in and see what vacancies they have. Maybe we really do have to stay here. So where do we start our new life? We should make some food. No, sandwiches and tea first, then cooking, or I'll drool. After Miranda's sandwich, everything seemed fine. Life was getting better. Nancy's bringing in some chemicals. The first thing to do is to clean the windows to get some sun and shine. Miranda looked around the house meticulously. She hadn't had time to do that in the morning. Gray furniture, dim windows, dusty curtains. If everything washed, it would be cozy. Where's Nancy? I can't wait. Nancy arrived as promised with her fiancé, a handsome, smiling blonde. He may not have been a groom, but he was interested, looking interested, clearly trying to please Nancy. His name was Benjamin. We're all going. Benjamin has to go to work. Nancy pushed the groom to the door. I'll pick up the monkey from the garden tonight and come over. What monkey? But Nancy was already running to the car. The monkey was a little red-haired girl named Betty, Nancy's daughter. With the helpers, it went faster, and in the course of the evening they had cleaned almost the whole house. Just a few little things left to do. Tired, but encouraged by the result, sat down to drink tea. But the monkey didn't finish his tea. He fell asleep. Nancy, who's Benjamin, they say there's only 3 bachelors here, and one of the 3 was killed. You should have seen those bachelors. Nancy laughed. The most eligible is Uncle Sebastian. He's about 60 years old. You'll never get anywhere here. He's been courting your neighbor Aunt Clara for about 30 of his 60 years. For as long as I can remember, he's been a suitor, and he's never decided to propose. And the second bachelor is not looked at even by the most stale girls. 40-year-old Nikolai studied in Washington. They say he's a computer genius, works from home, lives with his mom, doesn't go anywhere, doesn't talk to anyone. His mom tells me he was married. The village doesn't believe it. Someone considers him abnormal, but all agreed that he is unsuitable for socializing and even more so for marriage. The third bachelor is a dark horse, but according to Clara, a very interesting man. 2 years ago, a man came to the village with a teenage daughter. Everyone assumed he was a former athlete. First of all, he looked like that, strong, trim. Secondly, having settled in the village, he came to the school director and proposed to open a boxing section. The principal was not against it. It was a good idea, but not feasible. The school gym had not been working for several years. There was no money for repairs. The hall was almost in disrepair. Physical education lessons were held outside in the summer, running and soccer, and winter skiing. Then David, the athlete's name, disappeared from the village for a while. Then he came back with a decision to fund the renovation of the gym and a coaching position. That's when it turned out that David, a 3-time boxing champion, lives in their village. True, he hasn't been competing for a long time. He refused to participate in the World Championship. Why doesn't anyone know? How did he end up in the village? Also a mystery, but all the local signs said there was a woman involved. His daughter didn't talk to anyone either. She was a serious boxer. David took her to the district general competitions. Our girls, of course, became animated. They tried to charm him, but to no avail. He's kind of withdrawn, a loner. It's as if he and his daughter don't need anyone at all. He's only friends with Charles. That's the school principal's name. Bachelors, I see, but where did you get your Benjamin? Or is he married? No way. You don't want to mess with a married guy. We've had a couple of such stories. They didn't end well. Benjamin is from the neighboring village, right next door. Children from neighboring villages studied with us. Those who lived nearby were brought by school bus. The children from the distant villages lived in the boarding school. Nancy and Benjamin had known each other since they were in the 1st grade. As Benjamin told Benjamin later, he fell in love with Nancy in the 4th grade. Nancy was a bucket list girl. She liked one boy or the other, and she didn't notice Benjamin until her senior year of high school, but what a true, youthful love it was. Of course, for life, when it is impossible to breathe without each other, they drew a calendar and crossed out the days until their 18th birthday, when they could get married. Their parents were not against it, but they thought it was too early. He'd go into the army, then it was fine. Nancy went to high school. Benjamin went into the army, and city life surrounded Nancy. New impressions, new acquaintances, new love. Nancy got pregnant, and the father-to-be suddenly disappeared. He didn't appreciate the happiness. Nancy cried and came back to her mom. She also cried, said the eternal, "I told you so," hugged her daughter, and began to prepare for the birth of the child. Nancy avoided Benjamin. Ashamed to look him in the eye, she cried at night. She felt so sorry for her first love. It was the end of her love life. There would be no love or family in her life. One joy, red-haired Betty, her mother's happiness. Benjamin turned out to be a one-woman man. Couldn't forget his Nancy. Tried to live without her. Couldn't do it. You know, Miranda? He says he can't live without me. We have to be together. And we've wasted so much time. I don't believe him. How can you forgive betrayal? I chose my destiny. I'm fine, and I don't need anyone. But he keeps coming and coming. Everything's fine, and she's soaked to the skin. She chose her fate. Why don't you ask fate? Maybe she doesn't like your choices. You've been given a chance to get it all back, to be happy. So grab it. Why are you playing the noble game? I can't get anything back. I don't have a chance. Oh, Miranda, I'm sorry. I'm just sitting here complaining. What an idiot. Nancy, if you love me, don't be stupid. Now you've made mistakes. Don't make a major one. You won't forgive yourself. Oh, listen, what time is it? Nancy picked up her sleepy daughter. It's a shame to wake her up, but she's so big, I can't carry her. Bye then. I'll see you tomorrow. Nancy, thanks for your help. You're welcome. Miranda's been cleaning and scrubbing the house for a couple more days. She made it shiny and shiny. The house is clean, cozy, livable. It's beautiful. If she could just get the plot sorted out, she'd have an estate, but she can't do it alone. She'll need brute force. Well, we'll do it slowly. Sitting at home all day was boring. Miranda decided it was time to go out and at least go to school. The headmaster of the village school seemed to Miranda like this for some reason. He was not young, obese, with glasses and a tired look, a man tortured by problems, but he turned out to be young and energetic. When Charles found out that he had a certified and experienced English teacher, he was overjoyed. "Miranda, you don't know how we work here, do you? I'm a math teacher. I also teach physics. The chemist teaches biology, geography, and the history teacher teaches English. Do you realize what level of knowledge? We have only German among foreign languages, and there are no other teachers. We study in 2 shifts. It's not because there are too many students and not enough space. It's because there aren't enough teachers. Come on, I'll show you the school." Charles talked about the school only in superlatives, proud. Miranda had not expected that a school in the countryside could be as well equipped as any city school. A chemistry lab, a computer lab, a language class, all on the highest level. Maybe the repairs are simpler, but the atmosphere is somehow homely, cozy here. In the gymnasium, in the far corner, there was a boxing ring. Students were crowding around it. Judging by the emotions and cheers, something very interesting was going on. Miranda didn't understand anything about boxing. She thought it was a muzzle-beating sport. What kind of sport is it, where they hit each other on the head all the time? Charles went to the ring. Miranda preferred to watch from afar. She can't even watch it on TV, much less live. The fight was over in the ring. The athletes took off their helmets, and Miranda was amazed to see a girl who had just waved her fists in the ring. A short, frail, pretty girl of about 15 years old. A tall, strong coach with powerful arms came up to her, hugged the girl, said something, and she nodded and agreed. "David," the director waved to the coach, "come here." "Charles, I have practice." "Your practice can wait, go." "What a guy. The principal is on a first-name basis with the students." "All right, folks, but there are professional ethics. I mean, a bump on the head doesn't go unnoticed." "Miranda, this is David, the coach. He's got all the boys in the village. He's got the little ones and the ones who've left school." "David, Miranda will be teaching English, I hope." "Hello." Up close, the coach seemed huge. He didn't look at all welcoming. He doesn't care about Miranda or English. A rude bore. At least he could pretend to be pleasant. I'm surprised his children aren't afraid of him. A girl who had just fought in the ring approached them. Charles smiled. "This Kelly, our pride, is district champion and overall medalist. Daddy says she's very capable. She belongs in a big sport. That's my daughter," says David. "I'm sorry. It's probably none of my business, but aren't you scared for your daughter? It's not a woman's sport, is it?" "Yeah, it's none of your business." "Okay, this conversation is over. Time to go. Charles, thanks for the tour. I'll bring my papers tomorrow. Goodbye." Miranda went to the exit of the hall. She heard the principal quietly reprimanding David. "Are you crazy? Why are you being rude? You horny bear. You don't take offense at Daddy." Kelly caught up with Miranda. "You've gone wild with your boxers. You've forgotten how to talk to women. How'd you get settled in here? Would you like some help? I'm afraid Dad wouldn't like that." "No, he won't. He's not mean. He's just unhappy. He needs to come out of his shell and socialize, but he doesn't want to. You don't have anyone here either, do you? Let's be friends. And Dad, I'm sorry. I know he's already talking himself to death. His conscience is killing him. He'll apologize tomorrow." "Okay, we'll see. And you, Kelly, come by if you get bored. She's such a sweet girl, and she loves her daddy. I wonder why she called him unhappy. Something terrible must have happened. If a person is so closed in himself, separated from everyone, ostentatious indifference, and deliberate rudeness. Miranda liked the school, the principal. She decided that she would be comfortable in her new place of work. One unpleasant person does not make the weather. She is not interested in boxing. So the trainer can be ignored, communication minimized. She is starting a new life, excitement about the imminent changes. No one can bring her down from her joyful mood, not even such an unpleasant person as David. Miranda caught herself thinking that whatever she was thinking about that boorish coach. That was just the thing. What did she care about him? Miranda brought her diploma and employment history to school, wrote an application, and was hired to Charles' outright glee. Too bad it's the end of the school year, but from September everything will go according to plan. And now there is time to evaluate the equipment of the classroom, to add something, to correct, to prepare the curriculum. I had a lot of enthusiasm, and I stayed at home. Kelly often came to the office, chatting, helping, although Miranda promised not to communicate with David, but we had to see each other. He looked for Kelly after training and often found her in the English room. By the way, for the introduction scene, he apologized, as Kelly said he would. The communication was very concise. Hello, goodbye, how are you? Miranda finally got to work on the plot. It took a long time to gather her courage, telling herself that it was no big deal, that other people could handle it. In full uniform gloves, galoshes with a shovel and hacksaw, went to war on the thickets of cherry trees, up to 1/2 meter high, dug out a little more in no way. They have roots to the center of the earth, or what? Grow. Something dug out, something long and hard sawed. I got tired, sat under the apple tree, upset. There's enough for the whole summer. Kelly found her so tired and frustrated. Miranda, you can't do this alone. You're going to need heavy power. I'll tell my dad. He'll help you. No, that's not a good idea. It's not a bad idea. It's vacation time. School kids don't go to practice. Only adults, and that's 3 times a week. He cooked borscht yesterday. He'll start embroidering cross-stitch soon. It's better to use his bowgator strength for the intended purpose, and it will be more useful. The next day David came. Miranda felt so embarrassed. He would think she was the kind of woman who looked for an excuse to lure him to a house in the country. Every single woman has tried that. She says something like, I don't need anything. I didn't ask. I can manage on my own. She thought David grinned. Oh, he shouldn't have. The awkwardness was gone. The anger was gone. He'd be grinning. You're only needed here as a tractor. Miranda lifted her chin and with a royal gesture pointed. The shovel is over there. At first Miranda could see David from the window, and she pretended that she was not interested in what he was doing there. But she tried to peep discreetly. No sympathy for this man with a nasty temper, of course, no. But it was impossible to say that he was not handsome. Then David moved to another corner. You couldn't see him from the window. Miranda bent as far as she could. No, I couldn't see him. After 3 hours, Miranda thought she was being indecent. She hired a slave and didn't even offer water. She took a bottle, went behind the house, and was stunned. No thickets, 5 gorgeous cherry trees, and some bushes along the fence. Just a delight. David was tired and asked for water to wash his face. Miranda brought a bucket of water. David took off his shirt and splashed in the bucket. Miranda didn't look, but her eyes somehow squinted in that direction. Nancy came through the wicket. Dan, what bad timing. Whoa. Nancy whispered. What's this about mating games? It's the season. Nancy, What are you talking about? Kelly sent it, and she has a dream and an idea for us to be friends. She's worried sick about Daddy. I'd be worried too if I were you. Daddy's good. He's not good enough to be your girlfriend. I am, but he's not. And tell Kelly that you can't be friends with him. He's not fit for friendship, only for love. Nancy, stop messing with me. What are you doing here? If you're visiting, shall we go inside? No, Miranda, I'm not visiting. I'm here to formally invite you to the wedding. Oh, really? You're such a rule breaker. You've made up your mind. Stop wasting time. We're getting married in a month. Of course, I could have brought the invitation later, but I'm so excited. I wanted to share it with someone. David, are you listening? I'm inviting you to the wedding. Nancy, why him? Miranda whispered so David wouldn't hear. You don't know him at all, do you? It's a whim of mine. I invite whoever I want. Well, I'm off. The groom's waiting. Nancy left. David sat on the porch and Miranda didn't know what to do next. She was grateful, of course. She should probably invite him to dinner. She imagined this lunch, sitting across from each other, chewing and silent. It's perfect. It's like a romantic date. If she doesn't think of something now, he'll leave. Isn't that what she wanted? And now you're looking for a reason to stall. That you liked him or Nancy's example inspired you. You want to get married? Yes, I liked him, that's for sure. Not everyone would go to a woman who shows her disdain as much as she can to dig cherries. And then he's so cute. Miranda hadn't thought of what to say yet. David had already put on his shirt and was about to leave. Kelly saved the day. She flew into the yard and slowed down. Oh, Daddy, I'm glad you're still here. Let's take Miranda to dinner. Miranda, you have no idea how good a cook he is. He also plays the guitar. What, at the same time? No, at the same time. Kelly, did you and your dad agree on this? I'm fine with it. All of a sudden, David's coming out. Well, that's it. It's a deal. We'll see you tonight. They left and Miranda was surprised. How lucky that she didn't have to make the first move herself. David and Kelly were walking home and he hissed, You're a smart and beautiful girl, but I think it's time to whip you. Daddy, don't pretend. I can see you like it, Miranda. What would you do without me? Thank you, or you'd be walking in circles for another year. It's too late to whip you. You're 10 years too late. Miranda was going to visit, pulling out almost her entire closet to wear. Isn't that a little flashy? No one will think she's dressing up for him. It's boring. It's unfashionable. Here's a light-colored sundress with little flowers. Modest but tasteful. God, if anyone had told me she'd be dressed up and nervous about meeting a nondescript dork. I have spat in his face. What a way to turn fate around, huh? Dressed up and nervous. Dressed up. I went out. And there's Aunt Clara from behind the fence. Where are you dressed up? You can't go anywhere in this village without supervision. What do you care? Good man, get your hands right. What's the matter? Everybody knows, and she hasn't gotten there yet. The village knows they've got David. They're counting when to get married. Impossible people. It's understandable that we're bored and want colorful events, but not to such an extent. Although let them think, maybe it will come in handy. Dinner was beyond praise. I couldn't believe David made it. Well, how could I not? There's no restaurants around here. You can't order in. Kelly was radiant, talking only about her daddy, how wonderful he was, and what a sports career he had made. The girl really wanted her daddy to be happy. She remembered Mom, remembered what love was like, but Mom was gone. She couldn't allow her daddy to live a lonely and uninhabited life. She liked Miranda very much, and as she noticed, Miranda looked at Daddy with interest. Kelly set herself a goal. We have to get them together. And if the child is up to something, the parents are powerless. David and Miranda had another fight. Everything was fine, talking, joking. It turned out that David is not a bore at all, but a very pleasant person. Miranda, who told you to say that? Again, she started talking about boxing not being a sport for girls. It's like stepping on a favorite pet peeve. For so many years, David nurtured in his daughter's fighting qualities, almost brought up a champion, and now some city bimbo, a teacher who knows nothing about professional sports, says that his daughter should give up boxing. Yes, she doesn't embroider cross-stitch, but she can stand up for herself. If someone hurts you, you will cry, but she will fight back. She'll grow up to be a strong athlete. I guess it's my ambition, but I want my daughter to be a champion. If you had kids, you'd understand. It didn't hurt. He doesn't know anything, but it hurt. I finally liked a man, but it's like they're from different universes. They can't understand each other. Miranda was walking home. Kelly followed her. Kelly, go home. I'm sorry I hurt your daddy again. There's something I want to tell you. I think it's time. David and Emily were a nationally known couple. He's the American champion. Brutal, macho, virile, strong. She's a slim and delicate model whose pictures were everywhere on posters, on TV, on the internet. Emily gave up her career as soon as she found out she was pregnant. No doubt she didn't need all that show business. A house, a husband, and a baby. Nothing more. Kelly's birth was awaited with trepidation. The name was chosen long and carefully, but they did not agree. Emily wanted to name her daughter Camille. She loved the name so much, David insisted on Kelly. When Kelly was born, the parents thought it was a miracle. It was useless to say that they were not the first, they were not the last. Others also have children. Others just have children, but they had a miracle. David wanted his daughter to be called Kelly, so he secretly registered the child and brought the birth certificate, in which the name Kelly was written in black and white for eternity. Emily loved her husband so much that she was not offended and did not say a word against it. Kelly, it's Kelly, no matter what you call it, it is still a miracle extraordinary. Emily took care of the house and the baby. David was lost in training and competitions. He was an American champion 3 times and was going to the World Championships. Kelly was 6 years old when Mommy got sick. She didn't understand what Mom was sick with, but she could see that Mom was in a lot of pain. It is now she knows that Mom had cancer, beyond the operable stage. We tried to treat it, looked for specialists, wrote to foreign clinics. All in vain. The worst was the feeling of hopelessness, the impossibility to change anything. David never left his wife's side. Constant care, medication by the hour. Everyone knew Emily was dying. Tried to keep her with him just a little bit. After his wife died, David withdrew from the World Championships. Kelly was quite small, and trusting her to her relatives was not something he could do. He could not leave her to anyone at all, even for a day, seemed to betray Emily. The sports career was over. The coaching job remained. Kelly everywhere dragged with him, slowly began to train, she liked it, and the ability was. His pupils consistently became medalists in competitions. He was proud of their success. Life settled down. The longing for Emily did not go anywhere, but somehow subsided. But then there was a change of management in the club, and the new director began to hint that medals are good, but money is better. David was not going to mix sport and business. He quit his job and left with his daughter for the country. At least here everything is honest. While Kelly sat in Miranda's kitchen, Her dad poured his heart out to Charles. "How was dinner?" "Ah, it's not. Look, it's freaking me out. What kind of woman does everything wrong?" "Well, don't go to her, come on." I can't. She's as annoying as I like." "Then conquer." That's the kind of pithy man talk. Miranda was already timid in front of David, and after what Kelly said, she felt like a complete fool who, knowing nothing about a man, managed to judge. And what's worse than judging? How many times Miranda scolded herself for her language. Miranda tried to see David less often. It wasn't her fault, but it was scary to look him in the eye. But he'd come by, clean the lot, fix the house. Of course we'd see each other. My heart sank, but I didn't have the courage to talk. Who would I ask for advice? Vanessa, of course. It's been a long time since we've gossiped. It's about time. I spilled everything. I didn't hide anything. Vanessa didn't understand what the problem was. Any competitors? Any interested parties? No competitors. You don't like it. I like it too much. My friend, I don't understand you. You went to a remote village. You ran into a prince. What's wrong? The prince's horse is dead, and he can't get there on foot. Do I have to propose myself? No, wait, not yet. I'll come back in a couple weeks. We'll figure out what to do. Charles said conquer. How? The whole plot's been dug up. The fence repaired. The taps and locks are fine. What else is there? And the answer is silence. Everything is decent, polite, and indifferent. It's useless to consult with Charles. He's already openly mocking. David is pouring out his soul to him, and he is looking slyly with the devils jumping in his eyes, and it is obvious that he can hardly contain himself not to laugh at the top of his voice. Charles, do you think it's funny? I'm turning myself inside out in front of him, and he's laughing. Yeah, it's funny. Sitting there, big guy, mumbling, can't tell a woman he likes how he feels. Of course it's funny to you. You got a wife, kids. I want a wife too, by the way. And not just any kind, but a very specific one. You're a Charles, of course, and I'm a boxer. If you laugh now, you risk getting punched in the nose. My friend David, when was the last time you climbed into a woman's window? What's windows got to do with it? It's time to climb. It's not about the windows, it's about the woman. Okay, you're the thin, ironic one. I'm the fat, straightforward one, probably stupid too. I don't understand your parable about the windows. Are you saying I won't fit through? I'm implying that romance is the way to go. Of course you shouldn't go through a window. The result is either a night in the police or a black eye from a frying pan. Flowers to give to in our realities is not an option. What are you there to bring her a daisy or roses, Aunt Clara? There's no movie theaters or restaurants. Look, I never realized we were so bad at romance. We talked a little more about romance, but nothing came up. Charles' wife, Molly, has been listening to the men talk for years. God, how primitive are they? Good that God first created them, and then, looking at his creation, decided to improve and got a woman. When I realized that the men had reached an impasse, I decided to intervene. What flowers? You also invite him to a dance at the club. Let the kids laugh. Buy a ring and go to propose, and if she says no, of course she'll say no. It would be strange if she said yes. Who gets married so suddenly? But she'll think about it, start evaluating the pros and cons. What does that mean? That you, David, will always be on her mind. She can't think of anything else but you. Isn't that what you want? Molly, do you think this is gonna work? It worked for Charles. If it worked, we should go for it. While David was devising a plan to win Miranda over, she had an unexpected visitor. Ethan arrived. Miranda was overjoyed. A family man, Mason's son. A reminder of past happiness. Ethan had come for a specific purpose, to persuade Miranda to return to town. He couldn't shake the guilt. Realized Miranda was in this hellhole because of his mother. Miranda, I've put the apartment up for sale. Half of it is yours. Obviously you can't get the same one, but you're going back to the city. I would never claim my dad's apartment. We've got our own, but Mom's got her heart set on the place. Why are you the centerpiece? I know she can't get back at Dad anymore, so she's taking it out on you. Ethan, why sell? She was going to live there. Didn't she even start renovating it? She started it and she finished it. Her goal was to torment you, and you just left. You ruined her fun. And without you, she doesn't need the apartment. Ethan, I'm not going back to the city. Maybe someday, but not now. You and me, we'll take a walk in the country, you'll understand. It's not a shithole at all. Look, what house? Have you seen the plot? I could use the money from the sale of the apartment. I really want a bathhouse. Ethan, I'm so happy to see you. How did you find me? Vanessa cracked. I can't say, but I thought there was another husband on the way. You bastard, she didn't even give me a hint. Ethan, are you coming over for a couple days, or are you staying with me? Miranda, Dad wants to know if you're coming over for dinner. Kelly was at the door. You have a visitor. I'll go tell her it's dinner for 4. Kelly ran out. Miranda, I think I'll stay over. Yeah, you can stay, sure. But this girl's the neighborhood boxing champion, so be careful. The village has long since realized where this is going. Only these young people can't make up their minds. What can you take from them, city folk? All those who had David in their sights realized they were out of luck, so they crawled away nobly. Of course, I wanted to make a scene. She came here and stole the only decent man, but what's the use? He wasn't too late for their delights without her. But you can tell him you loved him so much, but you let him go, be happy. Noble. David couldn't think of anything romantic to do. Everything seemed fine without romance. Ethan's arrival made socializing almost a family affair. Lunches and dinners together. Conversations over tea until almost midnight. Ethan didn't want to leave Kelly, and David was only too happy to do so. Charles and Molly, pushing David. Don't be silent. She may not love you yet, but she's definitely interested. If you don't ask, you won't know. And Miranda had a visitor again. And what a guest. Vanessa is here. Vanessa didn't just come to visit on a rescue mission. She came to help her friend. She's missing. And Vanessa had some exciting news, but she was doing her best to keep quiet. We'd have to help the girlfriend first. Show the prince without the horse. We'll see who we need more, the prince or the horse. After the first dinner together, I decided that the prince was more important. Miranda, he can't take his eyes off you. He's a gorgeous man. I'm not talking about looks. There's nothing to talk about. He's so monumental in the sense of character. Miranda, take a good look. You'll never meet another like him. You know what I'm saying. But for some reason you're stubborn. I'm not stubborn. He's slowing down. Well, it's okay. We'll push. Vanessa, why don't you say something? Ethan said you're getting married. Come on, tell me. Yes, Vanessa was really getting married and assured that there were no mercantile interests in this marriage. Knowing her friend Miranda, I doubted that very much. The fact that she was introduced to her future husband by her ex-husband suggested certain thoughts. If it was the first husband, either an artist or a poet, you could believe that money is out of the question, pure love. But Vanessa's fate was decided by her second husband. There were no people in his entourage who believed in unselfish love. He invited Vanessa to some pathos reception. She didn't refuse. Who would refuse to go out with the powers that be? There Vanessa picked up a handsome young businessman who happened to be single. Now Vanessa did everything to change the man's status to married. Vanessa, besides single, do you know anything about him? Young, handsome, rich. What else is there to know? Well, he's not that young, but do you know he's rich? Or did someone tell you? He's a businessman, so he has money. Anyway, we know for sure he's handsome. Listen, you're a smart woman, and you're not poor, by the way. Did you ever think that you're someone's prey? You can't even tell me what your businessman's business is. Never told me what? Why didn't you ask? You've always been 3 steps ahead. What happened now? I can't believe you've been brainwashed by mad love. I don't know your businessman. I've never seen him. But men his age and with a lot of money don't get lonely. Miranda, what are you saying now? That he's a con man? And Alfonso, I'm afraid. Vanessa, it's just my impression. I don't insist. But take a closer look. Don't get carried away. You've already dived in twice. David kept trying to talk to Miranda. It didn't work. It's easy to advise, don't be silent and say it. Kelly is in the way, Ethan, who won't leave her side. And now Vanessa's added to the mix. Of course, you can find a place and a time, but David didn't. He was afraid. He didn't say anything yet. He hoped she'd say no, then he'd have to crawl away, and then have a live. One night, when Kelly and Ethan had gone to the club and Vanessa had tactfully left, David made up his mind. Miranda, you can see I like you, can't you? You don't have to say anything. If you say you're so nice, but I don't want to hear it. I told you so you'd know. You already knew. Now you know for sure, think, the step is yours. David, I don't know what to say. It's good that you don't know, but I have something to say, or rather ask. Miranda, I need some advice. David was upset with his daughter. He raised an athlete, a champion, and she suddenly said she wanted to be a lawyer. Why all of a sudden? So much effort invested, so much training, so much success. Now it's all for nothing. And she won't listen to anything. I got a job on vacation as an assistant in a law office. I drive every morning to the district. I've been enrolled in preparatory courses since September. I'm determined to go to law school. What do you want? She becomes a champion, then what? Have you ever thought how your daughter will live after graduation, even if she has a brilliant career, without education, without a family, without children? You don't have to say that everything can be combined. You know you can't. Your daughter is wiser than you. Don't stop her. We almost had another fight. We can't have a romantic conversation. Miranda has decided to talk to Kelly. If her decision is firm, Miranda will back her up, and Daddy can't resist too. David couldn't think of anything romantic to do. He suspected that Charles was mocking him, but the idea of climbing through the window came more and more often, but in the sense of romance. Then Nancy and her wedding came to the rescue. David was going to the wedding as if it were his own, even more excited. Newlyweds have nothing to worry about. They're determined, but he had total uncertainty. The wedding was according to all village canons. Neighbors dragged to the house Nancy and pickles, homemade sausage, roasted chickens, compotes in 3 liter jars. The men made a table for half a yard and appropriate benches. Nancy's girlfriends made up riddles for the ransom and contests for the wedding. Miranda was invited, but when she saw the ridiculous, almost over-the-top tasks for the groom, she declined. Wow, so how do you guys do things in the city? We have the internet. We can see, but we don't pout our lips or any other body parts, and we don't change sex. That's embarrassing, and we're just having fun. The wedding was epochal, one village on the bride's side, another on the groom's side. The bride had the tougher village, and the groom had the tougher men. There was no fight. Now the saying, "what wedding without a fight," is irrelevant. The bride was beaming with happiness. The groom shone like a copper basin. Betty lived up to her nickname, Monkey. She grabbed her mom by the hem of her beaufant dress or hung on Benjamin. Contests, jokes, toasts, songs, dances. The people had fun from the heart. Not often in the village happen events of this scale. Now there will be enough talk for a month. They'll be recounting who did what, who said what. The heroes of these stories will say, "It never happened." Maybe it didn't happen. It doesn't matter. In the annals of the village has already been written, and with each retelling will be added new colorful details. They say that if the guests sing a lot at a wedding, the life of the young people will be cheerful and happy. If it works, Nancy and Benjamin will be the happiest people on Miranda, and they'll be laughing all the time. The accordion player, Kevin, played all evening with a break for a drink. The people demanded songs. They sang the most heartfelt ones. Because Kevin did not have time to snack, in 3 hours we were left without accordion. The young people rejoiced they could finally turn on some normal music. They, of course, turned on, but after 10 minutes parents demanded to turn off this nonsense and turn on something soulful that for them soulful guys did not know, so they turned on disco 80s. They got it right. Even those who had never gotten out of a chair went dancing. David walked up to Miranda, extended his hand. Miranda put her hand on David's shoulder. They danced. David thought, this is it. Romance. Miranda's heart sank. She wanted to say her love, but it seemed like a man should be the first to say it. He didn't talk about love, but he said he'd take a step after her. No, I can't take that step. Why don't you say something, you big guy with no sense? The wedding was in full swing, singing and dancing, and Miranda suddenly remembered her and Mason's wedding. She remembered it without longing, without hopelessness, with sadness, sorrow, and gratitude. For the first time since Mason's death, thinking of him was just a bright memory. But the tears did come so as not to ruin people's holiday. Miranda got up from the table, walked out of the courtyard, and walked towards the river. She didn't want to part with her thoughts about Mason. The stinging sadness was no longer painful. Miranda felt like Mason was letting her go. She said to move on, be happy. Don't rush back to me, I'll wait. David went after Miranda, but Vanessa stopped him. Don't. Let her be alone. She's saying goodbye to her past. Don't interfere. David didn't let her go, but followed her. She understood. Miranda won't go back to the city. This is her destiny. She's a little stubborn, but she's not going anywhere from this man who's not much of a talker, so reliable. Oh, why can't she have any luck? It's always some fake prince. She wants love so badly. I guess to be loved, you have to love yourself. Fate is like a boomerang. It gives you what you put into the world. Miranda knows how to love, but she keeps calculating and guessing. I guess she miscalculated. Well, we're young and beautiful. We'll have time for that. Vanessa found Miranda. She was sitting on the bank, looking at the slow river, sat down next to her and hugged her. Don't be sad, my friend. Tell me, are you going to come back? Not right now. The school year has just started, and I can't leave everything. It's a bit scary, of course, how I'll live here in winter. But the others live. They won't let me go. Of course they won't, especially one of them, the big one. Vanessa laughed. It's so funny to look at you, just a beauty and a monster. The beast is very handsome, though, and he keeps his eyes on you. Miranda, what more do you want? You can't get Mason back, and David loves you. Why do you get such great men? Why am I any worse? You're a little hasty with the getting. Vanessa, what am I supposed to do? I like David. Kelly wants to get her daddy settled. She's doing everything she can to push him. Ethan's here for 2 days, but he's been here for 2 weeks. It makes sense. Kelly likes him, but I don't understand. Vanessa, I can't tell him I love him myself. He's healthy, strong. He's not afraid of anyone but me. Nothing, you'll get through the winter, and then we'll see. I'll go home tomorrow. I came to save you, but I don't seem to have anyone to save you from. I'm going to deal with my businessmen and my ex-husband at the same time. What a bastard, taking revenge by planting a con man. Well, I'm going to get out of your way. There's a David standing behind the bushes. It's getting dark. A huge moon hung in the still bright sky. The river was murmuring. One could hear the wedding singing, smelling of hay, flowers, and water. It's good here. David came over. Shall I sit with you? Of course, David. I know it's none of my business, but why didn't you get married again? It's hard to be alone with a baby. No, it's not. It would have been worse without Kelly. She saved me. I didn't get married because I was waiting for you. Miranda, why don't you stop beating around the bush? You see how I feel about you. If you can't see it, ask the village. They saw it all long ago. They sat side by side and looked at the river. Each of them was thinking about something else. David glanced at Miranda, though he wanted to look at her without stopping. He thought that fate had given him a chance to be happy again, had sent him this woman. But he can't decide to accept this gift. Fate might take offense. Why not just hug her, kiss her, tell her how much he loves her? On Molly's advice, he even bought a ring. Maybe it's silly, but if you don't have any ideas of your own, someone else's will do. Miranda thought about how you can't step into the same river twice. She was already happy. And the way she loved Mason, she couldn't love him anymore. And you don't have to do it the same way. You have to do it differently, with the experience of troubles and mistakes. Vanessa's right. She's really lucky to have the best men. Fate has kept her from making mistakes. They say fate chooses. No, it doesn't. It gives you a chance not to make a mistake. Miranda didn't make a mistake. She won't forget Mason. Just like David will never forget his wife. They even share the same fate, the same grief. Then happiness must be shared. It should be, but if David keeps quiet, that shared happiness may never happen. Come on, David, say something. David didn't say something. David did. He hugged Miranda, kissed her, and pulled a ring box out of his pocket. Miranda, will you marry me? Miranda was confused. There was such a look of bewilderment on her face that David laughed. It was exactly the reaction I had expected. That's what Molly said. Molly who? Charles, she said you'd say no, but you'd think about it, or not say no. I know it's the height of levity to think you'll say yes right away, but will you take the ring? You'll look at it and think of me. You will, won't you? About what? Who, me? Miranda smiled enigmatically and clung to David, thinking to herself that she was already thinking about him.